As we begin our awards program, let me first welcome, please, the President of the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce and National Sports Media Association board member and noted Clemson Tiger fan, Mark Owens.
Thanks, Wes. Now you got me in trouble with all the Wake Forest friends in the audience. Good evening. My name is Mark Owens, CEO at Greater Winston-Salem, Inc., the local Chamber of Commerce, and we're so excited to welcome you to our beautiful city. This is one of my favorite nights of the year where I get to be a part of this great organization, but most importantly, I get to just be a fan and see some of the people I watch on TV and listen to and read all the time. So it's an honor to be here with you. So welcome to Winston-Salem, headquarters to Hanes Brands, headquarters to Champion Brands, headquarters to Texas Pete Hot Sauce. Welcome to Winston-Salem, the largest producer of airplane seats in the United States. So when you fly on your airplanes, made right here. Yes, we are home to cigarettes. We are also home to the first official Independence Day celebration in 1783 in Old Salem. We're where George Washington came to study indoor plumbing and take it across America. We are also, Mr. Barkley, home to the original Krispy Kreme donut right here. I've seen you have some of those on TV. It's pretty awesome. We are home to the first Arts Council in the United States, which is why we're known as the City of Arts and Innovation. We're home to the oldest college for women in the country, in Salem College. We are home to NASCAR's first weekly track at Bowman Gray Stadium that started in 1949. We are home to Wake Forest University and now home to the ACC Men's Basketball Coach of the Year in Coach Forbes and the ACC Coach of the Year in Football, Coach Dave Clausen. Go Deeks. We are home to Winston-Salem State University, one of the top HBCUs in the country, where Earl the Pearl Monroe once played right here in Winston-Salem. We are hometown to the Big House Gaines Awards winner, head coach of the UNC men's Tar Heels basketball team, Coach Hubert Davis. We are the hometown to the point guard in West Forsyth High School and Wake Forest alum Chris Paul. And we are home to the number 2 best golf course in North Carolina, only behind Pinehurst number 2 in Old Town Country Club. And tonight, most importantly, and all year round, we are home to the headquarters of the National Sports Media Association in the Hall of Fame. So welcome to Winston-Salem.
Thanks, Mark. Sorry for the hassle in late September when the Tigers visit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the singular force of this organization, the Executive Director of the National Sports Media Association, Mr. Dave Gorin.
Been called a lot of things, singular force, not one of them, but not bad. Good evening, everybody. For many of us, it seems we were just here. That's because we were. After no awards banquet for more than 2 years, this is our second in 7 months, and there are plenty of people to thank for pulling it off. Before I do that, I'd like to recognize a couple people. For those who don't know, this organization started 45 miles down the road in Salisbury, North Carolina. And I'd like to welcome back some of the people from Salisbury who have been instrumental in what this organization has become. First of all, this young lady worked for this organization for 42 years. She's a Hall of Famer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Barbara Lockhart. Barbara. I'd also like to recognize longtime board member and Banquet MC, Dr. Carl Hales. I stole Carl's tux. And also, I would like to reintroduce our Roone Arledge Award winner from last night, Ms. Jane Kennedy. I would like to congratulate each and every one of our award winners. You have earned the respect of your peers, and that is truly special. Thank you to the staff here at Benton Convention Center and over at the Marriott for the help you have given us in rolling out the red carpet. You make us look good, so thank you very much. Thank you to all of our sponsors whose names you've seen on the video boards and in our program. Thank you to the NSMA Board of Directors under the leadership of tonight's MC, Wes Durham. And how about a big hand for our program committee, the ladies and gentlemen who did all of the blue-collar work to make sure our venues were ready for 3 days' worth of events. It is my true honor to be the executive director of this organization. Not only does the NSMA recognize excellence in our industry, but we also help students and young professionals navigate their path. That is our way of perpetuating the history of what we all do. Thank you to all those who took part in our Sports Media Convergence Summit the last 2 days. Thank you also to those authors who took part in yesterday's Sports Book Festival. We strive to educate, mentor, and connect. I am also proud of this organization because whether by adding new awards or increasing our number of finalists, we want to be diverse, open, and accessible to all. We look forward, that's my Massachusetts accent slipping out. We look forward to continuing on that path. Which brings us to our first awards of the night. Named after the legendary head basketball coach at Winston-Salem State University, the Clarence E. Big House Gaines Awards honor one coach each in Division I and Division II. Our Division II winner led her Lincoln University Lions to a 22-8 overall record, which included the CIAA Northern Division Championship, the CIAA Tournament title, and the school's first ever berth in the women's NCAA basketball tournament. Please welcome Big House Gaines Award winner, Janice Washington.
Hello, I'm used to a stool being here when I come up to speak. I would like to thank our university president, Dr. Brenda Allen, as well as our athletics director, Mr. Harry Stinson, and my SWA, who is here, Ms. Keisha Middleton. I have just arrived at Lincoln in August, and for anybody that wants to hear that great story of the roller coaster that we were on this year, please just hang out with me at some point later on today because it was a whirlwind, but it was awesome. It was awesome, but it wrapped up with 3 days at the conference tournament with no hot water. So that's about the story of how our season went, but I'm very proud of the resilience that our team showed this year, and I also want to really and truly thank my family back in Slidell, Louisiana, who've really supported me. As you can see, I'm a very short basketball coach. I quit gymnastics because I wanted to be a superstar basketball player. And so it worked out. Seems like it's worked out so good. So thank you guys very much for this honor. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Along with the Gaines Award, I should mention, our friend Billy Rich has donated 2 copies of the biography, They Call Me Big House, which we will also present to the winners. Our Division I winner was born right here in Winston-Salem, as Mark Owens alluded to earlier, but he moved to Virginia with his family when he was young. In this, his first season as head coach at his alma mater, he took over for Hall of Famer Roy Williams, and after helping the team find its legs, led the University of North Carolina to the men's national championship game. The Tar Heels finished tied for second place in the ACC, overall record 29-10. Please welcome Big House Gaines Award winner Hubert Davis.
Well, first of all, just wanted to say thank you very much. It's great being back home. As you mentioned, this is where I was born in Winston-Salem. My parents went to college at Johnson C. Smith, and the first job that my mom had outside of college was at the Wachovia building right downtown. And so I lived the first year of my life right off of Patterson Avenue. So it's great being back here. Even though that I did grow up in Washington, D.C., I had always been a Carolina fan. I was, from the time that I saw my uncle, Walter Davis, who was an All-American at North Carolina, from in the mid-'70s, I had always wanted to go to Carolina. I wanted to go to school there. I wanted to run out of that tunnel. I wanted to put on that uniform. I wanted to play on that floor. I wanted to play for Coach Smith. And to think that at the age of 4, something that I wanted to do, I actually got to go to school there and got to actually play there. And after I retired from the NBA, my wife and I got to go back and raise our children there. I fell in love with my wife there, became a Christian there. We bought our first house there. We got married there. Got to be an assistant coach under Coach Roy Williams for 9 years there. And then a little bit over a year, I've been the head coach at the University of North Carolina. It's a pretty cool deal. And and what that does is it puts you in a place of humbleness and thankfulness and appreciation for what you've been allowed to do. And so getting an award like that, that's where it actually puts me. Getting this award puts you in a place of humbleness and thankfulness and appreciation. You know, one of the things that we do at Carolina is we always thank the passer. And so when somebody scores, whether it's a dunk or a jump shot, we celebrate that. But everybody on the bench, players and coaches included, and also the players that are on the floor, we always point to the passer. Because it's as great as the shot that was made, whether it was a 3 or a dunk, it didn't depend on when the game was going on. We wanted to recognize how that happened. We wanted to recognize the person that sacrificed himself in order for that shot to be made. And so getting this award, I point to my team. You know, they let a first-year head coach coach them this year. They let a first-year head coach that had a passion to give them everything that I had, and they listened. And they played as hard as they could play. And one of the things that I desperately wanted for them is to have experiences and stories and testimonies of their own. I wanted them to have their own testimonies of running on that floor and putting on that uniform and coming up big in big-time moments as a North Carolina player. They were able to get that this year, but the great thing about it is they gave me more stories, gave me more testimonies, gave me more stories. And that's the really cool thing. So thank you very much for this award, but I'm very thankful that every day, we just had our first practice today. And one of the things that I'm thankful for is that I just get an opportunity every day to have a front row seat to be able to be in these kids' lives, to help them out, to love them, to encourage them, and to just try to help them make things work out for them. And so thank you for this award, but I'm very thankful for the job that I have and the position that I get to be in every day. Thank you very much.
This microphone's getting a workout tonight. Hi, Sandy. Good. And now, thanks to flight delays and cancellations, we were supposed to honor our Young Reporter of the Year last night during our Legacy Night celebration, but he got stuck in Seattle Saturday and arrived around midnight last night instead. He, like many of us, is working on 3 hours sleep and 5-hour energy, but he's here tonight, and we are thankful. From the Athletic Seattle, covering the Seahawks, our 2021 Young Reporter of the Year, Michael Shawn Dugar.
Welcome, everybody. Like Dave said, my name is Michael Shawn Dugar. I cover the Seahawks for The Athletic in Seattle. I'm grateful that I made it here. It was very hard. I traveled for 12 hours yesterday just to be able to get here and accept this award. So thank you to the National Sports Media Association for, adjusting for me. I really appreciate it. I just want to take this time to shout out everyone who just has ever believed in me or said, I'm proud of you, or I read your work, or I follow you on Twitter, or just whatever. Like, that just means, it's so much to me. And, over the years, I have just, when people say I'm proud of you, or, keep doing your thing, bro, or keep doing your thing, nephew, that's what my uncle would always say to me. These are his ashes that's in my heart necklace right here, and I'm wearing his watch, too. I always say, I got you. I got you. Or somebody who I went to high school with, I see you're doing your thing, bro. Keep going. I always say, I got you. I don't really know what else to say to that. But, I never really kind of think about what I got you means. Like, what do I got? What am I going to do? My mom says, I'm proud of you, son. Keep doing your thing. My dad says, I'm proud of you, son. My grandma says, I'm proud of you, baby. Keep doing what you're doing. I always say, I got you. And when I was on my way here, like I said, 12 hours to get here, I was thinking about what I got you means and how I never really knew what saying I got you means. Now I do. Thank you.
Well done. Actually, Michael Shawn was in last night. He just wanted to get his award tonight. I'm kidding. Now to introduce our Jim Nantz Collegiate Sportscaster of the Year is our longtime friend and CEO of Sportscasters Talent Agency of America, John Chalesnik. John.
Well, good evening, everyone, and congratulations to all of our honorees this evening. Thank you to Dave and everybody at NSMA. Never gets old coming here, and certainly never take for granted the opportunity to present the Jim Nantz Award here at NSMA. And quickly on a side note, I can't see through the glare too well, but I know Carl Hales is over there. It's awesome having you here tonight, Carl. I miss you, man. There you are, Carl. So glad to have you here tonight. I'd like to thank our judges, former Jim Nantz Award winners, Josh Appel, Adam Cavalier, Alex Faust, Kevin Fitzgerald, Eric Galanti, Nate Gatter, Ross Lipman, and Bill Spalding. A new judge this year from Westwood 1 is Howard Denneroff. And when Howard's good friend Tom Bowman learned that Howard had been a judge this year, and Tom has been gracious enough to do it a lot in the past, Tom said, I can't let Howard get a one-up on me. So moving forward, starting next year, both Howard and Tom are going to be on our judges panel, so that's pretty cool. 2 years ago, for the Nance Award, we received an application from a sophomore, a very talented sideline reporter and studio host, interviewer. She was terrific, but she didn't finish in the honors that year. But I called her because I didn't want her to feel discouraged in any way. Not that what we do is going to make somebody feel good or not about what they do. But I wanted to make sure that she remained encouraged because she was very much on the right track. So I called her and shared a couple of suggestions with her. And then I wrote in my notes, has a bright future. I look forward to watching her career unfold. Well, then last year, she didn't even apply for the award. And I thought, well, maybe she decided to change her major or something. So I was so pleased this year when she did apply. And the moment I watched her reel, I told my wife, this happens with some regularity, that's our Jim Nance Award winner. So I would like to introduce to you now, from the University of Notre Dame, just a recently graduated senior, Caroline Pineda. Sorry. Now, Caroline, before you speak, if you would watch the monitor over there, we have a special message for you.
Hello, friends, and hello, Caroline. It's Jim Nance. I just want to tell you how proud I am of what you've done with your career at Notre Dame. I've seen your tape. It's absolutely amazing. No hyperbole here at all. You have a really warmth, a presence about you, and a professionalism that's going to take you a real long way. Enjoy the journey. It's been hugely successful so far, and I have no doubt that it's going to take you to some fascinating places around the world. Congratulations. I could not be more proud to have your name linked with this name on this award. You deserve it so richly. Congratulations.
Wow. Hello, everyone. I would say I thought that had kind of sunk in, but watching that video makes me realize that that really had not sunk in until now. So talk about a name being linked with another name. That is truly such an honor, and I'm so grateful to Jim for letting my name be attached to him in some small way. So I won't take too much of your time because we have so many wonderful people to hear from tonight, and I'm so excited for that. But I do have a few thank yous of my own. First of all, thank you so much to John Chalesnik and the Sportscasters Talent Agency of America. John mentioned the phone call my sophomore year, and it truly was so encouraging. And the reason I didn't apply my junior year was not because I wasn't encouraged. It was because I really felt like with another year to improve, I could really show my best stuff, and hopefully that's what I was able to do this year. I guess maybe it was, since I'm here. Thank you also to Dave Gorin and the National Sports Media Association for a wonderful weekend. I've looked up to so many of you for so many years and watched you on television, read you, listened to you, and really to be in the same room as you tonight is truly incredible. So thank you so much for all being so gracious this weekend and for taking the time to chat with me. My next thank you is to the University of Notre Dame for the best 4 years I could have ever asked for. I'm a little bit biased, but I do think it's the best school in the country, and if you don't agree, maybe we can chat about that later. But thank you truly to everyone there, Fighting Irish Media, Notre Dame Student Media, and NBC Sports for providing me with so many opportunities throughout my 4 years in South Bend. I have a few more thank yous, but I just want to tell a quick story. I always love hearing about how people got interested in this industry, and so if you don't mind, I'd like to share mine. When I was in 5th grade, I was assigned an independent research project on the topic of my choosing, so a very broad assignment for some 11-year-olds. But I had just seen the movie Secretariat, and I was obsessed with the story, so I decided to do my project on that, and I asked my mom if I could write a letter to Ron Turcotte, his jockey. So we looked up his address, and somehow on the internet, a P.O. box in Van Buren, Maine popped up. So I wrote my letter. I asked him some questions about what it was like to win the Triple Crown and what it was like to have a movie about that. And I mailed it off. And my mom has since told me that she thought there was no way that he was ever going to answer. But thank you, Mom, for not telling me that at the time. But sure enough, before my presentation, a letter did arrive in the mail addressed to me. And not only had Ron Turcotte taken the time to answer all of my questions, but he had included a signed copy of his jockey card and a book recommendation. It was Bill Knack's book on Secretariat, in case I wanted to learn more. So truly, I love that story because I think it encapsulates so much of my experience to this point, which is my supportive mom, who's over there, and the rest of my family and all of my friends and the wonderful people that I have in my corner. My mom is here with me tonight, but there are some people watching the live stream as well, so thank you to all of them too. And then also just the willingness of people in this industry to let me listen to them and learn how to be a vehicle to tell people's stories, and then people, beginning with Ron Turcotte, but luckily there have been a lot of others who have been gracious enough to let me tell their stories. So thank you so much to all of you, and have a great rest of your night.
Caroline, thank you. Congratulations. John, thank you as always. Appreciate it. We begin the Hall of Fame portion of the program tonight honoring a gentleman who is already a Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame member, elected there as a contributor in 2005. But tonight, Hubert Jude Hubey Brown of Elizabeth, New Jersey, becomes the 127th member of the National Sports Media Association Hall of Fame. After a playing career at Niagara and a brief stint in the Army, Hubey found his way to coaching, first as a high school coach in Jersey, then as a college assistant, first at William & Mary, and then some of you may have forgotten, but Vic Bubas's staff at Duke in the 1960s featured two assistants, Hubey Brown and Chuck Daly. That's me and Bob Ryan on that one tonight. That's it. Then it was on to the NBA, where he assisted Larry Costello in Milwaukee before taking over in these parts the hated Kentucky Colonels of the ABA, because we were all Carolina Cougar fans. Hubey won an ABA title behind Artis Gilmore and Dan Issel. His NBA head coaching career went from 1976 to 1987 with 5 playoff seasons in Atlanta and New York. He began his full-time broadcast career at CBS, worked local telecast in Philadelphia and Detroit, then began at TNT in the early 1990s, earning 2 Sports Emmy nominations before being hired by the Grizzlies in 2002. After resigning a couple seasons later, hired at ABC, he's worked games on ABC, ESPN since that time, and contributes to their radio coverage of the playoffs. His insight to the league, as Hubey calls it, the game itself, his perspective on players and coaches, combined with his remarkable energy that continues to this day at the age of 88. Hubey could not be with us tonight. He had some medical issues following the end of the regular season. He sends his regards to his friends at both Turner Sports and ESPN. Please join me in congratulating Hubey Brown on induction into the National Sports Media Association Hall of Fame. Bless Andy, she's going to have a back injury grabbing those tonight. Good luck. All right, let's move on to the National Sports Writer of the Year. A first-time winner as the NSMA's National Sports Writer of the Year, Jeff Passan joined ESPN in early 2019. His regular appearances on SportsCenter, Baseball Tonight, and Get Up quickly made him a fan favorite for his latest insight on America's pastime. Before joining ESPN, Jeff spent 13 years at Yahoo Sports covering baseball, and along the way wrote a New York Times bestseller and co-authored another one on college football. That's been fairly prophetic, by the way, along the way. Jeff is a graduate of Syracuse, a native of Cleveland. Jeff's dad worked in this business too. I'm kind of leaning on those guys every once in a while. Jeff's dad worked for the Cleveland Plain Dealer for 42 years in a variety of roles, and tonight he becomes the 17th different person to be named the National Sports Writer of the Year. Please welcome from ESPN and ESPN.com, Jeff Passan.
I don't know how everyone is speaking without a speech. I need this right here. I want to start by thanking Dave Gore and the National Sports Media Association and all the voters for this incredible honor. And I really mean that because sometimes I wonder how many people today recognize that my true love in this business is the written word. I always hear, thanks for breaking news, and you're that guy from TV, and I follow you on Twitter, and no one ever says, I love your use of active verbs. You never dangle participles. Your restraint with em dashes is mwah. And I say this not to lament the journey that I've been lucky enough to be taken on. And you'll notice my lack of an active verb there is intentional, because as much hard work and effort and talent may play in all of our success, the truth is we are products of other people's belief in generosity. We aren't here, we aren't anywhere if others don't invest in us. If Rachel Ulrich and Stacey Pressman and Adrian Wojnarowski and Howard Bryant and Wright Thompson and Christina Douglas and Matt Kramer don't encourage ESPN to hire me, I never get the opportunity that I have now. If Jimmy Pitaro and Norby Williamson and Nate Ravitz and Lauren Reynolds and David Kraft and Seth Markman don't take a chance on me, I do not get to go on Scott Van Pelt's show and recite Wu-Tang Clan lyrics. If Greg Colley and Phil Orleans and Mark Gross don't allow me to learn on the fly, the TV thing that I'm doing now would have gone off the rails. And if Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez and Tim Kirkjian don't hold my hand, and literally the first time I did Baseball Tonight, Tim Kirkjian, who was the nicest, sweetest man in the world, comes up to me and actually held my hand and said, "You're gonna do great, Jeff." It was beautiful. I would have embarrassed myself. And if Dan Mullen and Alden Gonzalez and Jesse Rogers, Kylie McDaniel, June Lee, Buster Olney, Marley Rivera aren't there every day reporting and grinding and doing what's necessary for us to succeed at ESPN, the team I'm so proud to be a part of suffers. If Curry, where are you? If Kirkpatrick does not write with such elegance in such a confident, inimitable style, the 14-year-old me with his face buried in a Sports Illustrated anthology isn't thinking, boy, sports writing can be really lyrical. And to share this moment with him and with Jackie, who's transitioned from the apex of sports writing to the apex of television, really set a standard for all of us, fills my heart with appreciation. And to be here, well, I'm supposed to be here with Scott, but I guess he had to use the bathroom, so. Hey, buddy. To be here with Scott and to be here with Ernie and to be here with Stewart's family, these are not just the gold standards of what we do when they're on the air. These are gold standard people, too. Their kindness, their warmth, and their willingness to talk to some ink-stained wretch like me, it meant the world and has meant it and continues to mean it, and I am suffering from such imposter syndrome tonight because of it. I remember the first time I walked into a newsroom. I was 9 years old. My father was at the Plain Dealer. I can still picture it. Phones were ringing, and there was a crusty editor with a cigarette dangling from his lips, poring over copy, and there were bright lights illuminating this place, and it just crackled with energy. That feeling of urgency, of necessity, I wanted to be part of it. And my mom and my dad encouraged me to pursue it, gave me all the tools I needed. And for that, I am so thankful and appreciative. They were the first layer of this expansive foundation. But most important is my wife, Sarah, and my two sons, Jack and Luke. This life is not for everyone. There is no schedule. There is no do not disturb button on our phones. There are interruptions, cancellations, postponements, all in the name of some frivolity that in the moment feels like the biggest thing in the world. It's not. But they accept us despite our greatest flaw, that we had the temerity to become journalists. And I'm sorry for going so long. Rachel Ulrich, my editor, she always tells me I overwrite and I write for too long, and she's not wrong on either account, but I'm not sure I'll ever be back here again, and my love for this business and for this craft and for this calling is infinite. A friend of mine loves to talk about how sports journalism has changed for the worse. I disagree. We're still here. We're here despite corporate vultures who want to leech the industry dry and politicians who deride journalism because we dare to hold them accountable. This job has actually evolved into something that I think is thoroughly modern. In a world where information is currency, we are the bankers. And it's more important than ever, whether it is written or spoken, that we embody the fairness and accuracy that underpins this entire enterprise. Thank you for this great privilege, and thanks to everyone who helped carry me here. I almost made it, damn it.
Jeff, thank you. I know we want to get our state sports writers working toward this side of the room, and you'll do it in alphabetical order. Line up over there by the state in which you won the award. So if you won a sports writing award for a state winner, we'll get you to move to that side of the room. We have a handful of traditions here at the National Sports Media Association, and one of them is we welcome back a gentleman tonight who is a two-time Sportscaster of the Year in Virginia years ago, and now for the last 30 years has introduced our state sports writers and sportscasters. Please welcome back a past NSMA board chair as well, Mr. Doug Logan. Doug.
Thank you very much, Wes. On behalf of all of our state winners who are quickly assembling stage right or left, whatever it is, heartiest congratulations to all of our national honorees, and a special salute to all of our Hall of Fame inductees. Given all the challenges that we are facing with travel these days, the National Sports Media Association is especially proud that we have with us on hand 4 dozen state honorees, representing a remarkable 39 states with a record 37 first-time winners. And if we are set, let's meet our 2021 NSMA State Sports Writers of the Year. From Alabama, he works for Inside the Auburn Tigers, Auburn 247. This year will be his 23rd with Inside the Auburn Tigers. In 2021, he oversaw coverage of the first season under Brian Harsin at Auburn. First win for Jason Caldwell. From Arizona, he retired in October after 36 years with the Arizona Republic. In 21, he covered his 15th Olympics, working as part of the USA Today sports family. He also covered the Phoenix Mercury run to the WNBA Finals and Arizona State sports for his 36th year. 46 years overall in the newspaper business. First win for Jeff Metcalf. From Colorado, he just finished his 4th year as a beat reporter covering the Denver Nuggets. Over the last season, he broke numerous stories on his beat, even landing the one and only one-on-one interview with NBA MVP Nikola Jokic, and accomplished most of that from the comfort of his own living room couch. First win for Mike Singer. From Georgia, he's covered the Atlanta Hawks for 4 seasons at The Atlantic. Last year, he chronicled the Hawks' run to the Eastern Conference Finals. His personal favorite story? Writing a review on Magic City's world-famous chicken wings. In August, he'll move to New York to cover the Yankees. First visit to Winston-Salem for Chris Kirchner. From Idaho, he spent 9 years at the Idaho Press before leaving last December. He was the Boise State beat writer, but left the press to start BroncoNationNews.com. He's become Boise State's top insider, and he hosts live social media shows and podcasts in addition to his writing. 4th win for B.J. Rains. From Louisiana, he worked at the Times-Picayune Advocate in 21. Among the highlights were a farewell to Drew Brees, a profile on first-year Pelican coach Willie Green, and commentary on the lack of minority head coaches in the NFL. First recognition for Rod Walker. From Maine, after 21 years at the Kennebec Journal and Morning Sentinel, he now has moved on to the Portland Press Herald and has been working there for the last 6 years. At both papers, he was able to contribute to the coverage on how the pandemic affected sports in Maine. Second win for Travis Lazarzek. From New Jersey, 7 years at the New Jersey Advanced Media, he starred on the Rutgers beat, but his best work was a first-person story on his late father, whom he discovered was more than just a Vietnam veteran. The emotionally gripping "My Father Was a War Hero Who Saved Lives and I Never Knew" is a must-read. First recognition for Keith Sargent. From New York, he's in his 33rd year as an NFL columnist for Newsday newspaper located in Melville. He just completed his 3rd year as president of the Pro Football Writers of America, earning the Bill Nunn Jr. Career Achievement Award. He also is a co-author of the book The Forgotten First. 3rd win for Bob Glauber. Also from New York, she's entering her 36th year as sports writer for the Post-Standard in Syracuse. She covered the Orange through its run to the Sweet 16 and broke news related to Syracuse basketball players and the transfer portal. First honor for Donna DeTota. From North Carolina, he spent 12 seasons covering the Carolina Panthers, moving from the Charlotte Observer to The Athletic in 21. He chronicled an eventful Panthers season that included Cam Newton's return and wrote an in-depth article on the behind-the-scenes problems for Matt Rule's first 2 seasons in Charlotte. First win for Joe Person. From North Dakota, she's covered high school sports in North Dakota and northwestern Minnesota for the Forum of Fargo-Moorhead, North Dakota's largest newspaper, for just under 3 years. She covered multiple high school state championships and documented stops and starts of the chaotic 21 Minnesota sports season. First recognition for Carissa Washington. From Ohio, he's been with the Cincinnati Bengals for 22 years as the first and only writer for Bengals.com. In 21, coverage of the AFC Championship team ranged from writing running game stories to profiles on players and coaches to mailbag columns. He's covered his 447th game for the website at Super Bowl 56. First win for Jeff Hobson. From South Carolina, he's worked at the Charleston Post and Courier for 36 years, focusing primarily as a columnist and feature writer covering the ACC and the SEC. His highlights in 21 included stories about a Clemson walk-on whose mother died in an Alabama tornado and a Major League Baseball executive battling breast cancer. 8th honor, Gene Sapakoff. From Tennessee, 35-year veteran with the Middle Tennessee market. Last year, he co-founded a high school sports website that transitioned into a weekly print publication called Main Street Maury. And last summer, he was inducted into the Tennessee Sports Writers Hall of Fame. First win for Maurice Mo Patton. From Utah, after 29 years at the Salt Lake Tribune, he spent the last 3 years at the Desert News in Salt Lake City. In 21, he covered BYU football, University of Utah basketball, and Utah Jazz's playoff run, while also spearheading the news coverage for BYU's journey to admission in the Big 12. Third honor for Jay Drew. From Vermont, he's worked at the Rutland Herald for 35 years. His beats are high school sports, Castleton University athletics, and stock car racing at Devil's Bowl Speedway. But his most thrilling assignment in 21 was covering his granddaughter Brooklyn's state championship soccer game, which she and her teammates won. 10th recognition, Tom Haley. And from West Virginia, 15 years at HD Media, where he is now the regional sports director. Change was his theme for 21, as he led the Huntington Herald-Dispatch's coverage of Marshall University's switch from Conference USA to the Sun Belt Conference, while the Thundering Herd also changed their athletic director and head football coach. First visit to Winston-Salem for Grant Traylor. Let's have one more big hand for all of our state-winning sports writers.
Thank you, Doug. Wonderful to have you back as always. Doug will return here shortly for Sportscasters. We move to our second Hall of Fame inductee of the night. And to help us get started on the induction process for Curry Kirkpatrick, please welcome via videotape Bob Costas.
Hi, it's Bob Costas. First of all, I realized the lighting here looks a little weird. It's 2 o'clock in the morning as I record this. As I get older, I seem to be keeping odder and odder hours. In any case, Curry Kirkpatrick and Dave Gorin asked me to say a few words, and it better be just a few, because you have a couple of heavy hitters waiting on deck. So let's get this first part out of the way. There you all are in Winston-Salem, heart of ACC country, very likely divided loyalties in the audience, but in Curry's case, it only runs one way. He's a proud North Carolina alum, and that's fine. But he doesn't just revel in Tar Heel success. He derives as much and perversely perhaps more happiness from a Duke defeat. And so this year was the absolute epitome for Mr. Kirkpatrick. Because not only did North Carolina defeat Duke at Cameron, spoiling Coach K's final home game, but as fate would have it, they both made the Final Four. They met in the semifinal, and then North Carolina defeated Duke, and that became the final chapter of Coach K's coaching career as the Blue Devils were eliminated. This pleased Curry so much that it almost didn't matter that in the final, North Carolina lost to Kansas. Some of us may view this level of vitriol and hatred as a character flaw, but Curry considers it to be a defining virtue. There is no debating the virtue of Curry Kirkpatrick's work. Back in the day, Sports Illustrated is still very good today. It doesn't hold the same place as it once did, but with writers like Tom Verducci, there's always quality. But back in the day, Sports Illustrated was the sports publication. It was the Bible. It had the best writers. It had the best photography. It was the most credible. And you couldn't wait for your subscription to arrive or to run out to the newsstand to see what Roy Blunt Jr. had written, or Frank DeFord, or Dan Jenkins, or Bill Knack, or Rick Riley, or Mark Cram. And part of that all-star roster, a very important part, was Curry Kirkpatrick. Our Kirkpatrick piece profiling of Pete Maravich, or George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, or Bjorn Borg, any piece that Curry Kirkpatrick wrote was filled with literary touches, great turns of phrase, some witty asides. He could be sardonic, but at the heart of it was humanity and heart and a sense of embracing his subjects and making you, the reader, understand them better. And then there were his books. The one about Valvano, entitled, They Gave Me a Lifetime Contract and Then They Declared Me Dead. Or Vital, just your average, bald, one-eyed basketball wacko who beat the Ziggy and became a PT peer. With a body of work like that, the only question about Curry Kirkpatrick entering the Hall of Fame is what took us so long. And now I've gone on too long. So, congrats to Curry. And now I happily introduce my esteemed colleagues and friends, the wonderful Leslie Visser and the one and only Charles Barkley.
Well, you can't come all the way here, and we have to have a few minutes with Sir Charles, don't you think? So I thought, come on over here, my pal. I need you for this part. This is with Ernie Johnson's permission. I thought that we could, say no more, right? I thought that we could take a segment from inside the NBA, and you all have seen all the bits that they do. So I thought tonight we could do Curry Kirkpatrick, who he play for. Okay, Charles, your good friend Curry Kirkpatrick, I'll start with an easy one. Where was he born?
Oh, shit.
Okay. The Arch.
Oh, St. Louis.
St. Louis! Excellent, excellent. Okay, Curry, everyone knows that Curry has a distaste for Duke.
Yes.
Is it true or false that Curry almost went to Duke?
No. He didn't have the grace to go there.
True. His father drove him there, and the only reason he went to Carolina, maybe not the only reason, was because they had a journalism program. Yes. Yes. Maybe he'll refute that when he gets up here. Okay, final, Curry Kirkpatrick, who he play for. It starts with a prelude question.
Okay.
Who is Marlon Perkins?
Oh, that's the wildlife guy, right?
Yes, that's excellent. Wildlife, he did Mutual of Omaha, remember?
Yes,
Animal
yeah.
Kingdom.
Okay.
And what does he have to do with Curry Kirkpatrick?
They had to go to school or something together.
Try another one.
Curry went hunting with him or something?
It was Curry's uncle.
Oh, okay.
That's right, and Curry wrote a story, maybe some of you read it, an early story in Sports Illustrated, where he went and ran off with the circus because he had all the training from his Uncle Marlon. This will make it on Inside the NBA, don't you think?
Yes.
But we are here to honor, do you want to talk about Curry first, and I'll finish?
Well, first, I got to acknowledge a couple people here. Jackie, Bob, Scott, guys who I know very well through my life. But I got to acknowledge the Godfather. You know, I'm so lucky and blessed, we all are, you know, to work with Ernie. But Ernie has a great saying. He says, I got a get-to job. And we like, what the hell does that mean? He says, we get to do this. I want to acknowledge, these are my people right here. I miss Stewart. He's one of the best people I ever met in my life. He was the best. But Ernie always talk about get to. We have, and I don't forget his wife, Cheryl Ann, because she's a running thing, my whole TNT family. Thank you all for everything. But we get to do this. I was sitting around my house last night, and I was watching the Colorado Avalanche celebrate. And the joy, if you get to watch the joy on their face last night, you're like, we get to do this for a living. We get to watch the best players, best women, men, people in the world go to the Olympics. We get to do this for a living. We're the luckiest people in the world. So I want to congratulate everybody who's here tonight. And now, Curry, you know, Bob said it, man. Sports Illustrated is like the Bible. I mean, it's not quite yet. I know. Hey, and I'm sitting next to Jane Kennedy. Hey, thank you for everything. Thank you. Thank you. But Sports Illustrated is the Bible for every person who's ever played a sport. If you get mentioned in Sports Illustrated, you have actually made it. And the first time I met Curry, I was like, damn, I'm somebody now. It was so exciting. It was so cool. And, you know, people said, why are you going down there tonight? And I says, number one, he's Curry. And I said, you know what? Everybody talks about what a great writer, great journalist, all the books and all that other stuff. I said, I'm here for one reason. He's a nice man. And Curry, congratulations.
It is.
Okay.
Good job. Yeah, it's everything that Charles alluded to. Matter of fact, Jackie and Bob, we were talking about how we all went out to our mailbox every Thursday to get Sports Illustrated. And I think of Curry, he brought something to Sports Illustrated. It was great of Jeff to acknowledge him, that he brought, they always had those wonderful lyrical writers, but Curry brought pop and wow. Curry really brought wow, so that you knew it was sparkling. I remember when he did a story on Marquette when it wasn't just sophomore Bo Ellis. He knew all about why the shirts were hanging outside their uniforms. He went and talked to the manufacturer. Remember Bob at the Final Four in 1980 when Wiley Brown's thumb, he lost it in the pregame meal. Well, Wiley Brown was playing for Louisville, the Doctors of Dunk, and only Curry went and talked to the guy who ran the dumpster part of the cafeteria to find out where Wiley Brown's thumb was. So he's just been a role model for all of us, and there are so many giants in this room tonight. But Curry, come join us. It's just a privilege to give you this honor.
Thank you.
Ooh,
My
Lord.
turn, my turn.
Yes.
Charles said I can't hold that thing, it's too heavy, so he's going to help out. I don't know whether I'm as thrilled as I am humbled. This is almost overwhelming. I want to thank the NSMA and Dave Gorin especially for this unbelievable honor. I want to especially thank these characters, and Bob Costas and these two original gangsters, the trio of OGs, and you know, I'm so happy you guys are here. Bob Costas and I have so much in common. He was a St. Louis guy, I was a St. Louis guy. He went on to become an icon, a model, a role model, the voice and face of the Olympic Games, the absolute GOAT of this industry. And I, of course, went on to become a guy who sat on the couch watching all of this. And these two, I mean, the girl from Boston and the boy from Subway. I call them the Bod Squad. Everybody has a story about Charles. I'm going to tell you mine. I first met Charles in 1983. He was a sophomore at Auburn University. I went to the editors of the magazine, the basketball guys, and I said, look, there's this roly-poly fat kid destroying college basketball. I said, we have to do a cover on this guy.
You know I'm here, right?
I know you're here. I know you're here. I thought you were going to tell this story, actually. But that's the first time I met him. And they said, fine, go down to Auburn. So I went down and spent a couple days with Charles. And they had a big game on Saturday afternoon, Kentucky game, on TV game. And the magazine sent a couple of photographers down there to take the cover shots, get some action photos. The game starts, and Kentucky had a forward, a thuggo named Charles Hurt. And I think Charles Hurt was in the game to hurt our Charles. And sure enough, a couple of the first possessions, Charles Hurt is just banging this guy all over the place. Elbows, knees, bully him. He sends him out of bounds at one point. I think it was the second possession of the game. And Charles comes back, and as is his stoic wont, he smashes Charles Hurt in the back of the head. Do you remember this? Oh, yeah. So, and we have not rehearsed this, by the way. And the referees see this one. They don't see the other stuff. They see this one. They throw Charles Barkley out of the game. 103 seconds he was in the game. I remember this. I pack up my stuff, go back in the press room. I call New York, and I said, hey, our boy just got thrown out of the game in the first 2 minutes. They say, oh, we know. The photographers called us. No cover, no story. Come on home. Well, I did the story anyway. I'd already written most of the story. This was a Saturday afternoon deadline, and we had to change the whole story. It turned into a story about the conference, the SEC. So that's the reason Charles Barkley was never on the cover as a college player of Sports Illustrated. The most important part of the story, is that I didn't get the cover. And you guys know what that's about. So, as I say, I'd done the story already. I kind of got back at Charles. I don't think I invented the phrase round mound of rebound. I think that was somebody else. But I did call Charles the Crisco Kid. And I described his play as I recall, Porky Pig gone berserk on a trampoline. So thank you for your forgiveness in showing up here tonight. Leslie Visser, one of the first ladies of sports broadcasting. I mean, it's amazing to have her here. I don't know about the lady part, but she's the first woman to do basically everything. I guess first woman in the locker room, first woman on the sidelines, first woman to get a beat, first woman in Kentucky Derby, Final Four, World Series, Super Bowl, first one to do all this. Last month, Leslie was the first woman to become to get a Sports Emmys, Lifetime Achievement Award. So can we please hear it for that? I think Leslie wants to be the first woman on the moon, but I knew her. I met Leslie when she was a cheerleader in Boston College. I think she might have been the first woman cheerleader. I got to think of something. I got nothing else. You know, everybody's too nice here. I got to be nasty. That's the way. That's me. Okay. I mean, Leslie, I'm so. My agent is here. I'm so clear. You also were the first woman I asked to do this. After Erin Andrews and Hannah Storm and Maria Taylor couldn't be here, but thank you for being here. This is all to say that I am very, very old. As a matter of fact, when Dave Gorin called me about this award last winter, I was just astounded because I've always thought I'm too old to get awards and honors anymore. And then I saw the list of my fellow inductees, and I saw Hubey Brown. Hubey Brown. In the painted area, Hubey Brown. Compared to Hubey Brown, I'm a whippersnapper. Compared to Hubey Brown, I'm like a teenager. And I wish Hubey was here because I want to tell this story about him. I have association with all my fellow inductees, all close personal friends. And when I was in high school, junior high, I think, in Niagara Falls, New York, my family had moved from St. Louis to Niagara Falls. This is a true story, I first fell in love with basketball watching the Niagara Purple Eagles. Hubey Brown, the point guard. And so he was really an inspiration for me way back when. So Many years later, I'm at the magazine. I've been writing a few years, doing a lot of basketball. And I called Hubey up. I don't know, I don't even remember how I got his number. He was on his 12th or 15th or 20th coaching gig somewhere. And I introduced myself. I called him and said, Hubey, this is Kirkpatrick. I'm a writer at Sports Illustrated. I do basketball. And I just wanted to tell you, you were one of my... He interrupts me politely and says, who? Who is this? So if Hubey were, I wanted to thank him for his great friendship over the years. Jackie McMullen. So many years, so many press rooms, so many press conferences, so many late nights I covered stuff with Jackie, and we became really, really good friends over the years. And a couple of years ago, I'm up at my sister's house on a lake in New Hampshire. And one day she says, Jackie McMullen has a place right down the coast here. And I said, really? I said, great, well, let's go over and see her. So my sister and I went over to the house and knocked on the door, and nobody answered. She's not home. So I left a note for Jackie, a long note. I wrote, Jackie, this is Curry. I'm up at the lake with my sister. I'm just down the lake. Let's get together. I did email, text, phone number, the whole deal. Days go by, nothing. Weeks go by, nothing. I go home to Hilton Head where I lived, and a couple months later, my sister goes over there by herself. And she knocks on the door, and sure enough, Jackie McMullen comes to the door. And my sister, whose name is Edwina, she introduced herself. Jackie, hi, my name's Edwina Boos. I'm sister of Curry Kirkpatrick, and Curry left you a note, and Curry was up here, and when Curry wanted to see you, and Jackie politely interrupted and said, who? So thank you, Jackie, for all these years of friendship. Which brings me to Stuart Scott. Stuart, the great Scott. Stuart Booyah Scott. Could we hear it for him, please? As I told his lovely family last night, Stuart's another guy I had a lot in common with. He went to school in Chapel Hill. I went to school in Chapel Hill. He became notable enough to give the commencement speech at a Chapel Hill graduation a few years ago, and of course I barely graduated from Chapel Hill. Stuart then went and spent a few years at ESPN, became a superstar at the network. And I, of course, spent a few years at ESPN and never found a spot in the parking lot. But we're up at I was on the college basketball set one day at game day. And I'm there with Chris Fowler and Dick Vitale, Digger Phelps. We're sitting around. Stuart appears at the back of the set, and he's got a couple friends with him, and Chris Fowler waves over and says, Stuart, how are you doing? Stuart waves back, and Digger Phelps says, Stu, hey, what's happening? Stuart waves back at him, and Dick Vitale looks over and says, primetime performer, Stuart Scott. And he wave, and now I look over and I say, Stu, hey, how are you doing? Curry Kirkpatrick, Tar Heel guy, big UNC guy, Sports Illustrated magazine. And Stu taps his guys and says, who's that? So this is all to say, I'm not sure I belong up here with these luminaries, but I will take it. We have so many young journalists in the room tonight. I'm just astounded at these people and their abilities. It was in Chapel Hill that I first dabbled in writing. I was working for the Daily Tar Heel. In those days, UNC was not the women's lacrosse school it now is. Shout out to the national champions. We didn't even have women's lacrosse. We barely had men's lacrosse, but that's the kind of stuff I was doing for the Daily Tar Heel. I also renewed a kind of a relationship with Sports Illustrated because I actually was published in the magazine before I even got to college. as a prep school kid, I had written 2 letters to the editor, and they both got published. And this was such a thrill back then because, as folks up here have said earlier tonight, in those days, Sports Illustrated was it. I mean, Sports Illustrated was ESPN, it was TikTok, it was the internet, it was YouTube, it was everything. It was the be-all and end-all of sports journalism. It was also a jewel in the magazine profession. Everybody I ever met, from GQ and Vanity Fair, and they would all be so complimentary of Sports Illustrated and admired where I worked. I had, growing up, and especially in college, I had a hero at Sports Illustrated, and his name was Frank DeFord. He was a young writer he was only a few years ahead of me. Young writer, came out of Princeton, graduated from Princeton, went straight to the magazine, and wrote these amazing stories on college basketball. And I just idolized this guy. One night I'm in the stands at a college basketball game in Carolina, and it's the warm-ups. And I look down, and behind the press row is this guy taking notes at the warm-ups. And he just had a little notebook, and he was tall and elegant, and he looked like a combination of Savile Row and Hollywood and Vine. And this guy was a star. What presence this guy had. And I realized right then it was Frank DeFord. And I looked at him and I remember thinking, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. I want to work for Sports Illustrated. About that time, the magazine was getting kids, girls and guys, on campuses around the country to be stringers, to send in stuff from the area that they thought would be good for Sports Illustrated, be interested in it. And I did a couple of those. And now it's my senior year, and it's Christmas break. And I'm at home in Niagara Falls, and the phone rings. And it's Sports Illustrated. And they called and said, "Curry, we want you to come to New York for an interview." And, after I got off the floor, I didn't know what to do. I mean, what is this all about? I mean, I'm just halfway through my senior year. And I go up there, and I'm sitting across from Roy Terrell, who's a famous writer at the magazine, now an assistant managing editor. And he's asking about my life and my school and my family. And at one point he says, "Curry, we have a position here called a reporter. And a reporter doesn't write much, but he helps writers. He does research and statistics and checks for information. He's kind of a gopher for a writer." He didn't use the word gopher, but that's what it was. And he said, "We have an opening here. I'd like to know if you'd like to come work for us." Well, I probably babbled something incoherently and said, "Well, I'm graduating in June. I mean, is that where you want me to come?" He said, "No, we need you to come to work now." And I thought, well, this is, I just couldn't believe this. And apparently they had, when reporters left, they had some guy left with health reasons, and they just needed a warm body. They needed a person to come in there and fill in. And I didn't know what to say. And Roy says, look, I'll give you a day, go home, talk to your folks about it, and come back. But we need an answer in the next day or so. So I went home and talked to my family. And I loved Carolina. I loved being a student there. I loved the campus. And I really wanted to get a degree. And I thought about it and talked to my parents. And I called Sports Illustrated back, and I turned down a job at Sports Illustrated. I was like 21. I turned the job down. And I thought, well, that's that. And that summer, I went to work for the Buffalo Evening News. I was covering City Hall and the courts and writing movie reviews and boring stuff like that. And then in September, the phone rang again. It was Roy Terrell himself this time. And he said, "Curry, we have an opening. Can you come this time?" And that's how I got to Sports Illustrated. By the way, I went there in 1965. Your program, Dave, says 69. I don't know where you lost the 4 years, but I, like Frank DeFord, went right out of college to Sports Illustrated. A few years later, I find myself, I've got a little office, and down the hall to me, to my left is Bill Knack and Roy Blunt and Mark Cram. To my right is the great Dan Jenkins. And right across the hall is Frank DeFord. Well, I'm telling you, you can imagine how I picked these people's brain and bothered them and sat around and watched them and watched their process and tried to figure out who they were and how to do what they did. And I copied my butt off of them, of how they wrote. In fact, Dan would take me to his haunts in the Upper East Side of New York. He stayed out till like 2 and 3 a.m. every night. I couldn't handle that, but I tried. And he would introduce me as Curry Kirkpatrick. This is my friend Curry Kirkpatrick, the child writer. And I looked about 14 at the time. Now that I'm 114, I look back at that time, and it was the golden age of writers at Sports Illustrated. And I was just a novice. I was just drinking all this in. I was so lucky. I was so lucky. And I know you need a lot of luck in everything, in this business also. I didn't just write about basketball and tennis at Sports Illustrated. I wrote about bowlers. And like Ernie Johnson says, I got to write about bowlers. I got to write about softball players. I got to write about cricketers. I got to travel all around the world. I went to Paris and London and Argentina and Romania and Africa and New Jersey. And in New Jersey, I did a story on a future United States Senator named Bill Bradley. I went to Milledgeville, Georgia. I did another story on a future U.S. Senate candidate named Herschel Walker. They weren't the same guy. I got to make friends, again, Ernie, I got to make friends with both Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. I got to travel with the Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus, as Leslie pointed out earlier. I got to be the Boston Lobster mascot in a World Team Tennis match. I got to play softball with Eddie Feiner, the king in his court. I got to play tennis and throw horseshoes with the President of the United States, George Bush the first. I got to play footsie with Cheryl Teagues, not to mention Morgana the Kissing Bandit. No comment. I covered Tiger Woods when he was in college. I covered Bill Walton when he was in high school. I covered Venus and Serena Williams on the hard courts of Compton, California, the mean streets of Compton. And their father, Richard Williams, never slapped me once. Sports Illustrated was never a job. It was, for nearly 30 years, it was an adventure. And it was such an honor and a privilege to be there. Just as tonight, it is really a great honor and privilege to be here. I want to thank all the folks at Sports Illustrated who taught me how to be a journalist. I want to thank the folks at ESPN who taught me how to stand before a camera and speak without vomiting. I want to thank my family, my dad and mom, Tom and Ann Kirkpatrick, who always encouraged me and supported me. I want to thank my sister, Edwina Boos, who's here tonight with her husband, Bob, from New Hampshire. I want to thank my oldest daughter, Sage Catherine, who's a professional photographer in Los Angeles, sometime actress. I want to thank my youngest daughter, Chelsea Bogan, who's here tonight, Her husband, Ryan, is back at the hotel babysitting our two granddaughters, Harlow May and Meriwether. Both my daughters are Wake Forest girls, so we got some local stuff going on here. I want to especially thank my former wife, Marianne Kirkpatrick. And she's babysitting our granddaughter back in Hilton, our grandson back in Hilton at Draper. Without Marianne's encouragement and patience and loyalty and tolerance and great love, I would never be up here tonight. You all know in this business there's a lot of loneliness, a lot of travel, a lot of solitude. And without the family to come back to, the comfort zone and a loving family, you're not going to do it. You're not going to make it. And I thank you guys for that, for always being there. I want to conclude, and I know I've gone on and on here, but I want to conclude to get back to Frank DeFord, who died a few years ago. As I say, he was my idol, and I can't tell you how important he was to my life and career. A few years after I'd been at the magazine, I pitched a story about a body surfing beach in Newport Beach, California. People from all over the world came here to body surf. It's called The Wedge. And I went out there and met all the creeps and characters at the beach and learned about the history and the culture of the place and wrote this really long story, 10, 12 pages long. In those days, Sports Illustrated called it a bonus piece. It was in the back of the book. And it was my first bonus piece. It was my first real long-form journalism. It was my first foray into literate journalism. And you guys know, even broadcasters and writers, you don't know how it comes out. If you did it right, if you didn't do it right, you never really know. A few days later, Frank DeFord, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional here. Frank DeFord came in my office, and he said, Curry, the body surfing story, congratulations, your ship has come in. Frank DeFord just told me my ship has come in. I've never forgotten that. Never forgotten that. But I think Frank was only partially right. He was probably just being nice to his friend, his groupie. I wish he were here tonight, because tonight's the night my ship really has come in. I want to thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Sidebar, if I may. Imagine you're at the Target on Wendover Avenue in Greensboro today, and Charles Barkley walks in and he's looking to buy a piece of luggage. Thank you. Scott, that was really all I wanted to get from it right there. That was it. Just move right along. That's it. That's all it was. Soft toss in the cage. Before our next award is announced, if we may, folks, I would like you to ask to pause, remember, and reflect on these previous award winners and contributors to NSMA and our industry who we've lost in the last year. Thank you. Next up, the Woody Durham Voice of College Sports Award. Please welcome the Vice President of Broadcast Operations for Learfield, and apparently a new judge in the Jim Nance Awards. Thank you, John. Please welcome Tom Bowman.
I can't follow Curry. Forget it. This is Joe. Come on up. No, I'm kidding. Some of you remember a number of years ago we created an award in the honor of the great Woody Durham. You know, Woody meant the world to all the UNC fans, including my boss, Chris Ferris, right there, who's a proud Tar Heel. And he brought so many great moments to the Tar Heel fans. You know, he came in an era when not every game was on television, and you had to sit around your radio sometimes and hear Woody tell you what was going on. And it was an era that we'll never bring back. You know, his dedication to our broadcast industry was amazing. And so after Woody passed and he was brought into our Hall of Fame posthumously, we decided we needed to have something to remember Woody by, but also remember the incredible great voices that we have in college. So every year, a committee gets together and we pick a very valued recipient based on some criteria: preparation, recognizability with their school, tenure, efforts in the community, mentorship with young broadcasters, and of course, character. This year's recipient just completed his 47th season calling Cal Bears football. As the voice, Joe Starkey is synonymous with Cal football. His call of the 5-lateral kickoff return in the 1982 big game versus Stanford, known simply as The Play, is now legendary with his words, "The band is out on the field." As a trombone player in high school, I was hurt by this because the poor Stanford band member that got clobbered was a trombone player. I tried to get him here tonight, Joe. He's still around, but he's not in Winston-Salem, so we'll catch him when we get back out to the Bay Area. You know, Joe's a native of Chicago. He earned his bachelor's and master's degrees in business from Loyola University. From 1989 to 2008, not only did Joe call Cal football, but he was also calling 49ers football in the Bay Area. Now, as a child of Northern California, now I was 20 at the time, I was not a child, but I lived in Northern California, and in my grandfather's garage, every Saturday and Sunday, I heard Joe's voice. Work in the NFL, the NHL, and the NBA. I mean, does it ever stop? The radio booth at Memorial Stadium was named the Joe Starkey Broadcast Booth in 2016, and he was inducted into the Cal Athletic Hall of Fame in 2018. In 2010, Joe received the prestigious Chris Schenkel Award from the National Football Foundation for his distinguished career in college football. I wish we had more time to hear about your European vacation that we all heard about tonight, because that also is a very distinguished honor. But it does give me great pleasure to present the 2022 Woody Durham Voice of College Sports Award to the one and only Joe Starkey.
Okay, thank you. This came out of the blue. I got a call a couple of months ago, and he said we want to give you an award in North Carolina, and I said, where is North Carolina? No, I'm only kidding. No, but it's an incredible honor to be part of this group, and the reason is, I think above all else, is the fact is who it's named for. I am just so blown away because it is the Woody Durham Award. There couldn't be a better man, a sportscaster, to be used as a symbol for this award. Woody, wow, how wonderful to graduate from North Carolina, and then have the privilege of being the voice of football and basketball at your alma mater for all the years he was able to do that, 40 years. That is an incredible combination of success, good fortune, and somebody who deserves it. But what's more important in the fact that, yes, he was a North Carolina Sportscaster of the Year 13 times. He's in several halls of fame. But more impressive, he was a good and generous man and worthy of the pride Wes and his family have in his legacy. That's the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, to be given this award. It's amazing, as just mentioned. I think the one thing that has stayed through all my career is Cal football. I got into the business in a strange way. I was a vice president at Union Bank in California. I just had it in my head that I was going to become a sportscaster. I actually kept making tapes and actually went to Chicago to visit Charlie Finley while I was on a business trip for the bank, played him a tape and said, I want to be your new California Seals hockey broadcaster. And incredibly, he hired me on the spot, completely out of the blue, and 5 minutes later fired me because I said, you know, Mr. Finley, my specialty was human resources in college. That's what I do for the bank. And I said, you've had a lot of turnover. He said, well, I got a little more. You're fired. Job lasted 5 minutes, for God's sake. All right? So I went to the station that was carrying the games, and they hired me to do the games. And Finley agreed and went along with it. And so I began my sportscasting career primarily as a hockey announcer with the Seals, who I managed to close out of business. I also closed out the Colorado Rockies of the NHL. Now one of the most successful franchises in all of hockey, of course, is the hockey team in Denver that just won the Stanley Cup last night. But through all this, okay, we're talking hockey. I did 10 years in the NHL. I was in the NFL for 22 years. I did the North American Soccer League. I hosted a talk show at what they call the Crosby and then the AT&T Golf Tournament. I did that for 20 years. I've had this incredible range of opportunities and positions, but the one steady item all those years, Cal football, 1975 until now, a great honor to be part of such a great program, a great school, a great university, and I can't offer enough thanks that they've allowed me to be part of that all those years. There were years when I was doing the 2 or 3 teams at a time, I thought, why am I doing this? It's just asking too much, these all-night plane rides all the time and all that sort of thing. But the one steady part was always Cal football. So I'm proud to have spent my life and my career in being part of that. And I've had all these remarkable opportunities, and obviously the one thing I'm identified with more than anything else is the famous Cal-Stanford lateral play that was defined by the 1982 game. You'll see highlights of this day. You know, when it first happened, it wasn't a big deal because at that time, you didn't have all the satellite coverage and the cable coverage and all the ESPN events and all those kind of things. So it was a very regional thing for quite some time that Cal beat Stanford in that game. And it was just over time, as more and more opportunities came to show it, that it became such a big deal. And so it became such a point there that you almost couldn't get away from it. If anybody heard my name, they wanted to talk about the band is on the field. And of course, I was happy to do it. It was a great honor. And so being the Cal announcer over all these years, I can't thank my family enough, the sacrifices that my wife had to make. My kids have worked with me. I've always made them my spotters or statisticians throughout the years as part of the game, so it's been a great, great thrill to be part of that. And when you're the Cal football announcer, you have more fame than you can imagine. I'm going to finish with this story, all right? My wife and my 11-year-old son, my youngest son, we're on a trip to Europe back in the late 80s, and we end up in the middle of summer, we're going to go to Rome, and we're finishing at a hotel called the Cavalieri Hilton that overlooks the Vatican. And it's a hot summer day in August. And so my wife and my son, after a long drive up from southern Italy, said they want to take a nap. I said, I got to go to the pool. So I'm going to go to the swimming pool. I've got a book in my hands. I sit down at the pool, and so help me God, sitting down next to me, joining me at the pool, the entire Rolling Stones band and their family. Okay? So Charlie Watts, the drummer, sits down next to me. So I'm having a chat with Charlie Watts, the famous drummer of the Rolling Stones, and he says to me, after a few minutes, we're talking about where their concert is and the show is and all that sort of thing. He says, you know, Mike, he says, let's go in the pool. I said, boy, is that a great idea. It's such a hot afternoon. Let's go this time. He says, let's go stand in the pool. So we go to the shallow end of the pool, and we're standing there just chatting away, and suddenly another guy joins us. Now, some of you might be too young for this, but many of you will know the name Lou Ferrigno. Okay? Lou Ferrigno was the Incredible Hulk. All right? So we are now in the swimming pool. We have Lou Ferrigno on my left. I have Charlie Watts on my right. I'm in the middle, and a guy jumps in at the other end of the pool, looks us over, stands in front of the three of us, and says, aren't you the Cal football announcer? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh my God. Quick, what happens first? Is he on your podcast or does he make the first edition of Inside the NBA? Just checking. Next, another Hall of Fame inductee. And the presenter tonight is one of the same, a 2011 Hall of Fame inductee, 4 times the National Sports Writer of the Year, and a very honorable and integral part of the NSMA as a board member. Please welcome the great Bob Ryan.
Thank you, Wes. Always great to be back here, my favorite night of the year. And I offer my sincere congratulations to all the award winners tonight. Now, if you allow me to read to you an excerpt from the introduction to a superb anthology entitled The Best of American Sports Writing. When I was 9 years old, free to languish amid the lazy days of summer, I chose instead to meticulously lay out my clothes the night before I turned in, so I would be prepared. I lived on a quiet residential street shaped like a horseshoe, and it so happened that the straightaway section, the flattest part of the road, conveniently stretched along the front of my house. It was the ideal location for a makeshift street hockey game, an event that happened to be the center of my world in those days, but the rules were clear. First to the pavement, were the first to play. I wanted to be first. Not the first girl, because as always, I would be the only one. It was paramount to me that while my sisters lingered at the breakfast table, cozy in their pajamas, I would be fully dressed, sneakers tied, peering out from behind the curtains of our dining room window, alertly awaiting my day's companions who would soon be queuing up, sticks in hand, for an afternoon that promised to be splendid. During adolescence, these were the moments when I felt most empowered and most comfortable in my skin. Competition flooded me with confidence, and as long as I was running and jumping or chasing, swatting, or shooting a ball, I was happy. In the 60s, my passion was occasionally met with curiosity, even skepticism. Is that girl out there again? Won't she get hurt? And yes, aside from my blonde ponytail, I was indistinguishable from the rest of our group. T-shirts, shirts, knobby knees, and squeaky voices hollering, "Car!" whenever one of our family's station wagons lumbered down the hill. Sports became my everything, allowing me to embrace an identity that seemed elusive in many of my alternative universes. It wasn't as nakedly simple as winning or losing, although when my team came up short, it was often me who quickly declared, "Let's go again!" even as the sun quit on us and our moms beckoned us to the dinner table. I knew I was different, but as long as I was immersed in sweat and the camaraderie of my male neighbors, my friends, I could navigate that. That, ladies and gentlemen, was a small sample of the kind of exquisite writing skill that has brought Jackie McMullen here tonight to be inducted into the NSMA Hall of Fame. But there is much more to the story. In the fall of 1988, I, Bob Ryan, handed over the Boston Globe Celtics beat to a young colleague. Readers quickly discovered the beat was remaining in high-quality hands. Yes, I am paying myself a compliment. Anyway, the fun part for those of us at the Globe was that most of the readers had no idea they were being schooled by a girl. Yeah, Those people weren't among the many Globe males who had drawn the misfortune of covering Jackie McMullen in our lunchtime pickup games across the street at UMass Boston. Jackie could play. She had been a member of a mighty high school power at Westwood High School, and she had played at the University of New Hampshire. She knew basketball from the inside, which doesn't necessarily mean some would know how to write it or anything else. Jackie is here because she is a great journalist. Listen to the words of Don Squar, one of her editors at the Globe, and I quote, "There are people who are really good reporters. There are people who are really good writers. There are people who are really good interviewers. There is nobody better than Jackie combining all three. That ability sets her apart from the rest." Elaborating on her interviewing skills, Squar says, she's a great listener. When she's speaking with someone, you wind up speaking to a friend, a psychiatrist, or a little bit of both. I couldn't believe some of the things she got out of me. Joe Sullivan, another of her former bosses, has this to say: she's the one who could tell me when I was full of shit, when I was off base. For me, she started out as a colleague and wound up as a friend. I don't know how else to put it, but Jackie is the sister I never had, and I'm so proud of her. Now, you can read all about her accomplishments in the program, but sis, the one that actually ticks me off is this: you have written twice as many books with Larry Bird as I have. The Noive! And speaking of Larry, he wanted to be heard, and here it is. It is a thrill to congratulate you on your Hall of Fame induction into the prestigious National Sports Media Association, an organization that recognizes the best of the best. It has always been my honor and pleasure to work alongside of you for so many years as a player, a head coach, an NBA executive, and as a co-author. Your exceptional writing gifts and your dedication to your profession have always impressed me. You are truly a Hall of Famer in every sense of the meaning. I am so happy for you. I thank you for your collaboration, and I wish you continued success. The words of Larry Bird. Now, the NBA is well known for having so many stars readily identifiable by just one name. Wilt, Russ, Elgin, Jerry, Oscar, Kareem, Julius, Moses, Patrick, Charles, Larry, Magic, Michael, Isaiah, Shaq, Kobe, and of course, Steph, Clay, and Draymond. But in our profession, that distinction belongs to just one of our own superstars. Jackie, get up here!
Thank you, my dear friend Bob. And thank you to the MS and see, Bob, you've got me all verklempt. Thank you to the NMSA. I practiced that, and it's still hard to say, for this wonderful recognition. And can we please give Dave Gorin another round of applause? I'm so grateful to be here and to even be mentioned in the same sentence. Stuart Scott, I'll get you in a minute, Curry, and Hubey Brown, and my dear friend Kirkpatrick. Curry, the note you left on my door was written on a paper towel. I didn't see it for 6 days, and it rained for 4 of those days. When my husband and I returned to our cottage, I said, "What is this?" And Mike said, "I think it's the Jehovah's Witnesses. Throw it out." That's all I got for you, Curry. I can't tell you how grateful and fortunate I am, not just to be up here, but to experience this extraordinary life that I was so fortunate to have. I worked for the Boston Globe, for Sports Illustrated, and for ESPN. I just don't even know how it can get any better than that. And I was so grateful for all the people that I was surrounded by that made each one of those steps comfortable for me and comforting for me. And remember, we're talking about a time when there weren't very many of us. I went to the Boston Globe as an intern in 1982. I was 20 years old. I went there as a graduate. I was graduating from college. They didn't allow graduates to do their internship program. It was forbidden. They didn't want people bugging them for jobs. But I'd been a basketball player at UNH, so I could never do internships on either semester because the basketball covered both semesters. So I was behind. And I really, really wanted to do that Globe internship. So my professor said to me, well, I have an idea. Why don't you defer your graduation? So that's what I did. I had enough credits to graduate. I just didn't. I got to the Globe, and I wanted to cover the Red Sox and the Patriots and the Celtics, but the only spot they had was on the news desk. So I covered fires in Roxbury and interviewed homeless people on Mass Ave and tried to figure out what the heck a fisheries commission did. I still don't really know. But every day when my news shift ended, I'd go over to the sports department and I'd just sit and watch and listen, and it was captivating, just absolutely captivating. The debate, the banter, the arguments, the knowledge, the friendships. I was like, man, how do I get here? How do I get here? So at the end of the summer, my dad said to me, what are you going to do? I said, well, I don't know. My internship's over. He said, are you going to ask him for a job? I said, well, why is he going to hire me? Vince Doria was a sports editor. He doesn't know me. He said, all you can do is ask. So I went in, and I said to Vince Doria, I'd kind of like to work here. And he said, well, have you ever done sports? I said, well, I have some field hockey clips. That's really all I had. He said, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you work for us for a month? You can cover some local college football games. We'll see how you do. So what he really wanted to see was, could I write on deadline? Because back in the day, that's what you know this, Jeff, that's what it was all about with newspapers. Can you get it in on time? We'd like it to be good, but we're really more concerned with you getting it on time, right? So I was young, and I was fast. Not as fast as you, Bob. No one was ever as fast as you. And I was also a woman. So in December of 1982, Vince Doria hired me. All these years later, I still don't know why. I still cannot believe it. It was my dream job, an absolute dream. I was working among legends every single day. At the roof of the Globe, there was where the parking lot was. That's where all the cars were. I would drop up every day saying, oh, there's Bob Ryan's car. Oh, Leslie Visser, I'm not sure you had a car. You had moved to New York by then. But these were all the people that I would look for every day. And that's where I ended up with my own personal big three. It started with the late, great Will McDonough, larger than life. The man who paved the way, by the way, for all of us journalists to be on television. He was the very, very first. He broke so much news, the networks thought, well, what the heck, we might as well put him on. He seems to know it best. Will was a wily reporter, tough as could be. He once stuffed the Patriots player Raymond Claiborne into a locker because they had a disagreement. I was terrified of him, but at the same time, I was mesmerized by him. Will had a Rolodex. For all you young people out there, we didn't have laptops or computers. The Rolodex had all the addresses in. He had everybody in there, from the commissioner of baseball to the prime minister of Ireland. Will is the one that showed me how to get people to talk. Will's the one that explained to me how to connect with people and how to have them tell you your secrets. And you know what he said? The first thing you start with is, whoever you're calling, get to know the secretary first. Remember, we don't have cell phones in that day. We had to call the office. He said, every time you call somebody, write down the secretary's name. It's a little thing, but really, for me, it turned out to be a pretty big one. We lost Will in 2003. I miss him every single day. He had such a profound effect on me. And one of the greatest honors of my life was to be a pallbearer at Will's funeral. My second big three, Lee Monfil, a literary master, wrote stories that would make you laugh, cry, become enraged, all in the same column. I used to watch Lee Monfil pace up and down the Globe Room, the stairs, up and down the hallways. He'd have 3 columns going at once, each one of them more brilliant than the next. But he could never decide which one he was going to write. Well, when he finally decided, by then it was usually 7:30 at night, and I used to love to watch this process. He'd pick one, and I would say, well, isn't that great? Because then you can use one of the other ones tomorrow. And he would say, no, I like to start fresh. Who says that? Only Lee Monfil. My third, big 3, is sitting on stage with me. Bob Ryan. No lie, Bob, it says right here, my big brother, the big brother I never had, whose passion for our business, in case you can't tell, is unsurpassed. He taught me how to cover a team, how to write a game story with flair. Again, how to connect with the people you are covering. I mean, seriously, he's the best game story writer that ever lived. We know that. And who needs Google when you have Bob Ryan? He remembers everything, every single thing. And he shared every bit of it with me. And I thank you for that, Bob. So as Bob mentioned, in my early years, I benefited from my name, Jackie Mack. Everybody thought I was an Irish Catholic guy from Southie. It was awesome. You know, it was just better that they didn't know I was a Protestant girl from Long Island, because I've often wondered, what if my name was Linda McMullen? Would people have prejudged me based on my gender? I'll never know the answer. But I feel like I got a little bit of a hall pass at the start. People could say, oh, that guy from Southie sucks, or, yeah, that guy, he seems to know what he's talking about. Now, times were different in the 80s, for sure. I don't really love talking about all the hard old days of women in an industry that was mostly men. I don't love talking about the security guard from UMass that physically removed me from the locker room, or the NFL player that threw a hairdryer at me, or all the Red Sox players that used to glare at me every time I walked into the clubhouse. You know, I remember trying to explain to Red Auerbach once why it was so important for all of us women to have the same access as the men. And he just took a cigar, his trade cigar, kind of blew it in my face. I loved Red, and I had met him years earlier when I was covering a college game at the Boston Garden. I was very excited. I got there very early. I had all my stuff lined up, and the seat next to me was empty, and I'm left-handed, so I thought that would be good. I'd have nobody next to me, and right before the game started, in comes Red Auerbach. He sits down right next to me, and he's like, hi. I'm like, nothing. I got nothing. I got nothing for Red Auerbach. I was 22 years old. I was terrified. It was Boston College and St. John's. They were playing a game, and he was kind of sitting there, and at one of the first time out, he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, do you want an ice cream? I'm thinking, I don't want an ice cream, but I'm like, sure. So now I got an ice cream dripping down my arm. I'm trying to cover this game, and I still haven't said anything intelligent to Red Auerbach. And finally, it's halftime, and the players all run to the locker room, and the cheerleaders all go out, to the half court to do their halftime performance. And Red looked at me, and he gestures to the court, and he says, so what do you think? And I'm ready now, and I said, I think BC's pressure is really bothering that half-court trap. And he said, no, the girls, aren't you the cheerleading coach? Such a bummer. No, I'm not. But I will tell you that Red came around. He actually became one of my trusted sources. And at the end of his life, after his wife had passed and he was in ill health, I used to just make up stories, make up reasons, phantom reasons to call him on the phone, just to check on him, and to just talk basketball with him, because it was such a pleasure, to be able to do that. Now, not everybody did come around, especially when I was young, in my early 20s, when you had another coach or manager or player gave you that look or said those words or physically tried to stop you and basically tell you, you're not wanted here. I'd retreat to my car, I'd look around, make sure nobody was watching, cry for a minute or two, and then get back at it. And I was so lucky to have Vince Doria and Dawn Score, who've been mentioned here. They were fierce advocates for me and for every other woman in our industry, and I can never thank them enough for that, ever. I left the Globe incubator, as I used to like to call it, in 1995. I got a great offer from Bill Colson at Sports Illustrated. It was an offer I could not refuse, orchestrated by the great Jack McCallum, one of my great friends. And I worked there for a bit. I went back to the Globe because the lure of that place was so strong. But then in later years, I signed on full-time with ESPN. I got to be involved in some of their television coverage, but I also landed in the lap of this treasure trove of writers and editors, many of whom are sitting right here, who were just amazing. And they provided us with a space to tell a story the right way. Such a gift, right? Space, whether it's digital space or space on the copy, to be able to spread your wings and tell a story the way it should be told. It's a dying art, frankly. I don't know if there's any sports editors out there, but if you have writers that want to tell a really good story, give them the time and give them the space. When I came up with the idea to examine mental health in the NBA, not only did my ESPN editors clear the decks for me for the time I needed to report that story, they also allowed me to do a 5-part series. I still don't know how we pulled that off. And I honestly believe it may have been one of the most important things I've ever written. So thank you to you guys for allowing that to go on. Curry mentioned this. Our jobs took us to extraordinary places. I went to Henley to cover the regatta, where they measured the length of my skirt with a ruler as you walked in, while the Queen looked on from a distance. I went to South Korea to see Ben Johnson win an Olympic gold medal, and then 24 hours lose that gold medal because he tested positive for steroids. Our friend Stan Grossfeld of the Globe was smart enough. There was only one flight from Seoul back to Canada, and Stan Grossfeld bought a first-class seat and sat with Ben Johnson for 13 hours until he finally gave him that exclusive. That's what newspapers were like in those days. I went to China to trace Yao Ming's roots. I went with my dad. It was a work trip for the Globe, and I was allowed to bring on my dad. We were guests at the Chinese Basketball Federation, and we were invited to a state dinner. And my dad and I both agreed, okay, we just have to eat everything out of etiquette, whether it looked like an eyeball, which it did, or an innards or fish heads. And we were cruising along pretty well until they gave us live scorpions and had to dip us in the hot oil. And my dad and I both looked at each other and said, let's stash these in the napkins. So they went into the napkins. When I was with ESPN, I traveled to Cameroon, where I sipped palm wine with Joel Embiid's parents, and then visited the grave of their little boy Arthur, Joel's beloved little brother, where he was buried. One of my favorite trips was to a location I am not allowed to divulge in Indiana, where Larry Bird took me on his ATV and rode me all the way through his beautiful ranch and pointed out his favorite fishing holes and the fields where he put up hay. He's just one of many athletes, too many of them to list here, that just gave me all I ever really wanted, and that was a fair chance to tell my story. There is one athlete, he's still here, Charles, and I want to thank you, Charles. I don't think you have any idea how you validated me by the way you treated me around other writers. You gave me some status that I didn't have if you hadn't been so kind. Charles and I knew each other for many, many years when I was at the Globe, and then when I went to Sports Illustrated, Charles was in his final season of his career, and he was on his tour, and he was going to play in Philadelphia first, and then he said to me, well, when we get to Boston, that's my next stop, we'll sit down, we'll do a great story. Well, I was in Philly with Charles, and unfortunately, I think it was a rebound you were going for, Charles. He ruptured his quad, and his career was over a lot sooner than we had hoped. And I thought, oh, this is terrible for poor Charles. And then I was thinking, I think this is terrible for poor me, too, because I think my story is shot. And I went to see him in the locker room and to give him my condolences, and he said, it's okay, doll. I'm still coming to Boston, I promised. And we sat in the Ritz-Carlton. It's one of my favorite memories. And we talked about his career, and I think we drank a little champagne. Yep. So thank you, Charles. Again, appreciate you so much. I think it's been mentioned a few times here that this life we chose isn't always easy. It's pretty difficult for our families at times. I want to thank my own family for putting up with the unpredictable and all-encompassing profession of ours. My husband, Michael, and my children, Allison and Douglas, they're really all that matter to me, to be honest. And I'm so thankful that they not only supported me, but they also really encouraged me. Now, they're not here tonight, and they're not here tonight for a good reason. I mentioned my father earlier. He was the very first person in my life that ever told me I could do anything, absolutely anything. He was born and raised in Queens. He was a traveling salesman, so he came home with the New York Post and the Daily News and the New York Times for me to read as a 10-year-old. He was a newspaper guy, and he was just positively delighted when I chose this line of work. My dad passed away on April 26th at the amazing age of 96 years old. We held his funeral on Saturday, just 2 days ago. So we still have family in town, and that's where my family is. My dad knew about this award before he passed, and he was very proud, as of course all of our parents are. And he said, you know, Jackie, I really wish I could be there. I wish I was well enough to see you get this award. And of course, I very much wish that too, but I kind of feel my dad here tonight. And I'm going to accept this wonderful recognition on behalf of the great Fred McMullen, who really did believe that I could do anything. Thank you so much.
We're going to welcome Doug Logan back. We'll ask the state sportscasters to again over here to my left, your right, and we'll ask National Sportscaster of the Year Ernie Johnson to help us in the presentation of these awards. Doug.
Thank you once again, Wes. You know, a lot of folks are enjoying receiving rounds of applause this evening. I'd like to offer one up for our outstanding Master of Ceremonies, Wes Durham. Great job, Wes. All right. They're getting assembled in state alphabetical order. It's exciting. And we're going to see how fast they can move. Because here we go. Let's meet our 2021 NSMA State Sportscasters of the Year. Starting with Alabama, 3 years as the play-by-play voice of the Auburn Tigers football, men's basketball, and baseball. He also hosts the Talking Tigers podcast and co-host of Tiger Talk for Auburn Athletics. First honor for Andy Bircham. From Arkansas, 3 years as sports reporter and broadcaster for the Arkansas Razorbacks, covering a number of historic wins, including an Outback Bowl victory in Tampa. She also produced a number of live, in-depth specials and feature stories and exclusive interviews. First win for Jordan Black. From California, now play-by-play voice of the 76ers for NBC Sports in Philadelphia. She's the first woman to call a Golden State Warriors game, the Copa America and Gold Cup tournaments, men's Olympic basketball, and National College Football Game of the Week for Learfield. First recognition for Kate Scott. From Delaware, 52 years of play-by-play experience, now with the Heritage Sports Radio Network. He called Delaware State University Hornets football and basketball throughout the pandemic, bringing the action to the fans who weren't allowed at the games. First win for Gary Lang. From Florida, in his 33rd year as the team's Spanish-language radio play-by-play announcer, broadcasting all Miami Heat regular season and postseason games without ever missing a game until COVID forced him to miss the play-by-play of 3 games in the Eastern Conference semifinals. He did, however, do a pre- and post-game show from his Boston hotel room. First visit to Winston-Salem, Jose Pineda. Also from Florida, finishing his 33rd season as play-by-play announcer for the Orlando Magic, he's handled radio play-by-play for 9 seasons. The 21-22 year was his 24th year on television. Second win for David Steele. From Georgia, he just finished his 37th season calling the Atlanta Hawks games on the radio. His consecutive game streak now stands at 2,827 regular season and playoff games. 5th win for Steve Holman. From Hawaii, 2 years as sports reporter for KHON-TV, he quickly learned about Hawaii's unique sports landscape and was able to spread his wisdom through stories that impact the islands most. First recognition for Alan Hoshida. From Idaho, 15 years with KMVT-TV, and the last 8 as sports director. She covered a former NFL player who climbed Mount Everest despite witnessing death along the way, and she followed the College of Southern Idaho men's basketball team's return to glory. First win for Brittany Cooper. Also from Idaho, while continuing his 9th season as women's basketball play-by-play announcer with Boise State, he began calling Mountain West Conference games on the CBS Sports Network and Olympic table tennis for NBC. First honor for Chris Lewis. From Indiana, play-by-play voice on the Learfield Purdue Sports Network for women's basketball for 32 years and on football announcing crew for 27, his last 12 providing play-by-play. In 21, he called the Boilermakers' upset football wins over top 5 Iowa and Michigan State and that overtime Music City Bowl win over Tennessee. First visit to Winston-Salem, Tim Newton. From Iowa, in his 27th year at WHO in Des Moines, he's the station's sports director, host of Sound Off, and he co-hosts the #1 radio sports talk show, Murph and Andy. 5th win for Keith Murphy. From Kentucky, 35 years at WLKY in Louisville, he was shooting a high school football opening night when on the first play from scrimmage, he was taken out by a running back who was diving for a touchdown. His left knee was smashed, dislocated kneecap, torn meniscus, blown ligaments, but he did get the video of the play. And 10 months after surgery, he's back on his feet and playing great golf once again. Second honor for Fred Cowgill. Also from Kentucky, 22 years at WAVE-TV in Louisville, he joined the sports department in 2005. Last year's highlights included an increased presence in the station's Kentucky Derby coverage. He also co-hosts Believe in the ACC podcast with Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Charlie Ward. First win, Kendrick Haskins. From Louisiana, 21 years at WAFB-TV in Baton Rouge. In 21, he covered LSU's chaotic football season. He also won a Suncoast Emmy for the 2nd straight year. 2nd NSMA honor for Jacques Doucet. From Maine, 13 years with Blueberry Broadcasting, the last 4 as the radio voice of the Maine Black Bears hockey for Learfield. He also is the host and producer of a daily Black Bear Insider radio feature and host of the weekly University of Maine Hockey Coaches Show. First win for John Shields. From Maryland, he recently retired after 31 years at WBFF-TV and the only sports director the station's ever had. He broadcast both the CFL's Baltimore Stallions and the NFL's Baltimore Ravens on the radio. He won the NSSA's Powerade Award in '95, and he is a 2-time Alabama Sportscaster of the Year. First win in Maryland, 3rd overall, Bruce Cunningham. From Massachusetts, 9 years calling play-by-play for the New England Patriots on 98.5 The Sports Hub. 8 of those seasons were winning ones that included 18 playoff games and 4 Super Bowls. First recognition, Bob Sosie. From Michigan, 43rd year working in sports media. He hosted Drive with Jack for Spotlight Radio and Press Box on Fox 47 in Lansing, started work on his 9th book, and attended his 154th straight Michigan State, Michigan football and basketball games. A 3-time Michigan Sports Writer of the Year, now 3-time Michigan Sportscaster of the Year, Jack Ebling. Also from Michigan, 11 years at WXYZ TV in Detroit. In 21, he conducted interviews with the city's top players and head coaches, as well as the cast of Ted Lasso. He anchored his station's Rocket Mortgage Classic programming and interviewed Jim Harbaugh weekly as the Wolverines made the college football playoffs. Second win, Brad Galley. From Montana, 3-year radio voice of the Montana State football and basketball teams for Learfield, he called the FCS semifinal that sent the Bobcats to the national championship game, and a Montana State basketball team that won its conference for the first time in 20 years. Freshly named the new voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies. First trip to Winston-Salem, Zach Mackey. From Nebraska, 21 years at Alpha Media, heard at Hale Varsity, covering Cornhuskers football. He was in Norman, Oklahoma for the renewal of the Nebraska-OU rivalry and covered the state high school boys and girls basketball tournament and the College World Series. First win for Chris Schmidt. From New Jersey, he's in his 34th year at Prime Events in New Jersey and has spent decades covering sports throughout southern New Jersey. He also broadcast and produced 3 high school championship games in 21. 11th win for Tom Williams. Tom's in the bathroom. Well, maybe not. From New Mexico, he's been the co-host of the award-winning Opening Drive, 95.9 FM and AM 610 for the sports animal ABQ the past 14 years, also offering play-by-play for several of the University of New Mexico's football and basketball games on radio TV. Third honor for Jeff Symbieta. From North Carolina, 24 years at 99.9 The Fan. His noon to 3 talk show achieved unprecedented rating success. He also is the station's Carolina Hurricanes beat reporter and host of the Canes Corner podcast, which is downloaded more than 5,000 times a week during 21. First win for Adam Gold. From North Dakota, 8 years with Midco Sports, providing the play-by-play for Missouri Valley football and Summit League men's and women's basketball. He called the Summit League conference tournaments for both basketball and softball. First recognition, Brian Shawn. From Ohio, in his 24th year as the voice of the Ohio State Buckeyes, he called games that featured Heisman finalist C.J. Stroud, and the Buckeyes went to win the Rose Bowl. He covered the Buckeye basketball team that appeared in the NCAA tournament. He currently works with both WBNS Radio and the Ohio State Learfield Radio Network. 5th win for Paul Keels. From Oklahoma, 6 years as the voice of men's basketball and baseball at Oral Roberts University, where he covered the team's Sweet 16 run. He served as a pre- and post-game host for the 12-2 Oklahoma State Cowboys on their sports network. He attended NSMA's Sports Media Convergence Summit in 2014, and now 8 years later, he's a first-time winner. Adam Hildebrandt. From Oregon, she joined 1080 The Fan in Portland to become the only woman to host a sports talk radio show in the market. For KOIN, she dove deeper in her coverage of all teams in the Pacific Northwest, focusing on impactful stories and hosting weekly shows based on the Seattle Seahawks. First win, A.J. McCord. From Pennsylvania, he retired in 21 after 39 seasons with the Philadelphia 76ers TV crew, the last 27 as their play-by-play voice. Now teaching at Temple University's Klein College of Media and Communications. Third honor for Mark Zumoff. From Rhode Island, he made the transition to sports director in 21 while his department put on a market-leading coverage of Tom Brady's return to New England and the Red Sox run to the ALCS, as well as the Patriots return to the playoffs. First win for Maury Hirschgordon. From South Carolina, by way of Brooklyn, New York, she's been covering sports in the Palmetto State for 6 years. Since 2018, she's been at WYFF-TV in Greenville, where she's covered multiple college football national championships and Clemson's title run in 2018. First recognition, Julia Morris. From South Dakota, a 40-year veteran of Brookings Radio, tragically he passed away in February due to complications from a lung transplant. In his career, he had broadcast games involving his wife and 3 children. His wife, Margie, and son, Drew, are here to represent him tonight. Third honor for Dallas Cole. From Vermont, after 3 years at WVNY and WFFF in Burlington, Vermont, where she covered local high school and college and winter sports while leading the sports department, now in her first year at KSEE and CBS 47 TV in Fresno, California, first win for Angelique Martinez. From Virginia, he served as sports director at WTVR-TV in Richmond for 28 years. He anchored 2 seasons of Final Score Friday and 2 presentations of the Dedley and Lanier Awards, honoring Virginia's top college football players. Also anchored state coverage of Virginia golf tournaments and was a sideline reporter for the Richmond Spiders. Second recognition, Lane Casadonte. From West Virginia, 12 years with the West Virginia Metro News Network, where he calls play-by-play for the Morgantown Mohegans and West Virginia State High School champions. He also is the football pregame host on the Thundering Herd Sports Network and a talk show host. First win for Dave Wilson. From Wisconsin, 28 years with the Badger Sports Properties in Learfield, he passed the 1,400 game mark calling Wisconsin football and basketball. He says he especially enjoyed describing the exploits of breakout stars Braylon Allen in football and Johnny Davis in basketball. 10th honor, Matt Lepay. Also from Wisconsin, he retired in 21 after 35 seasons as the TV voice of the Milwaukee Bucks. His broadcast career includes calling play-by-play for the Milwaukee Brewers and Big Ten football. First win for Jim Paschke. And from Wyoming, he's been with Sheridan Media in Sheridan for 34 years. And tonight, he and his lovely wife, Linda, who is in the audience, are celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary. Second visit to Winston-Salem for Trevor Jackson. How about one more big round of applause for all of our state sportscasters of the year and all of tonight's honorees.
We move on. Tonight we celebrate a pair of first-time winners of the NSMA's National Sportscaster of the Year honor. After stints at WTTG and the Golf Channel, Scott Van Pelt joined ESPN in 2001, and from there his resume exploded. Lead professional golf reporter, Sports Center anchor, ESPN radio show host, including SVP Russillo and more. But for nearly the last 7 years, Sports Center with SVP has become one of the network's marquee shows. I personally am a fan of winners on Thursday night. A proud Maryland grad, tonight he becomes the 21st different person to be named the National Sportscaster of the Year, Scott Van Pelt.
Thank you all. Thanks so much. Congrats to all the winners tonight. It's an honor to be in your company. This beats the hell out of the Emmys, where we just get to the end of the night and they only say Ernie Johnson's name. About that, I need to begin with a quick story. A couple of years ago, I was honored to be nominated for an Emmy Award. It was the first year of COVID, and the ceremony was virtual, and it was in August. And I remember that because my family was moving, and all of our belongings were packed up in boxes. And my daughter, who was 7 at the time, she got to stay up late that night and watch on a laptop because it was going to be streaming, and she wanted to see if Daddy won a trophy. Well, we got to the end of that night, and as is often the case, they read the name of a very deserving winner, Ernie Johnson. By the way, I love you too, man. That's my guy right there. And my daughter was upset, and so she went and tried to open up a box because she wanted to get a little gymnastics or soccer trophy because she wanted Dad to have a trophy. Oh, I was right. And the next year it was virtual again, and that night I went to work, and again my daughter watched online, and again they got to the end of the night, and they gave out the award, and once again a very deserving winner was Ernie Johnson. He wins a lot. And when I came home that night from doing the show, it was fantastic, man. There's balloons all in the kitchen, and there were notes and cards from my wife and from my daughter, and she had taken a little label maker, and she made a label that said 2021 Outstanding Studio Host, and she put it on an old Emmy that I had won for being part of College Game Day, and she put it on the counter. And I came home that night, and I thought, man, how cool is that? They wanted me to know that, you know, in their eyes, they felt like I was a winner. And this year in January, I got a phone call from Dave about this wonderful honor that I get to share with Ernie tonight. And at dinner, I said, sweetheart, guess what? I said, Daddy won a trophy. And she said, you won? And I said, well, I tied. And I said, guess who I tied with? And my beautiful little angel, she crinkled up her eyebrows, she squinted her eyes, and she made a sour face, and she said, Ernie Johnson. I said, that's right. So the most adored personality in our business has one sworn enemy in this world, and it is my little 9-year-old daughter. Actually, that isn't true, because quickly she thought about it, and she said, well, Daddy, maybe this means that you're catching up if you tied him. And I explained, and this is the truth. I said, darling, I said, if you tie Ernie Johnson for anything in this life, then you're winning. Because I know of no greater example as a man of how to be a husband and as a father. And I know of no greater example in our business of how to share your humanity and your faith and your kindness and your generosity than the example that you set. And so the fact that I get to stand here and share this with you, I couldn't be more honored, my man. You're the best there is. Now, if I could share just some personal thoughts, I've been thinking a lot about this. I tend to do this thing, and maybe a lot of us do it. I tend to be a lot more comfortable if I'm just self-deprecating, make a joke, kind of blow it off. I'm just really not good at taking compliments. But ever since I got this call in January, I thought, don't do that. Like, be an adult and just be grateful. Share your gratitude with this room and let everybody here know how sincerely I appreciate being recognized in this way, because I do. I recognize that what we do isn't the most important thing in the world, but we all work hard at it, you know. Holidays aren't always holidays, weekends aren't always weekends, and we put a lot into it. And so the idea that this is seen and received this way by my peers, it means a lot, you know. It truly does. It validates what it is that we do. Man, I'm on cable at midnight. I don't know if anybody's out there, you know. I really don't. But a night like this lets me know that I suppose it is. And just some quick names that matter to me. Mike McQuaid and Stanford Steve and Maddie and Jeff in D.C. and Marco and Eric and Brian and J-Mac and all our crew up in Connecticut. You all know the deal, man. None of us do this singularly. I'm sitting out there by myself, but I stand on the shoulders of all those people who work their asses off to put me out there, to give me a chance to do my thing. And I thank them. I accept this on all of their behalf. They're important to me. But ultimately, family is the most important thing. And Sandy Montag was here tonight when he got up and I wanted to walk out with him. He's been the only agent I've had, and he'll be the only agent I ever have, because he's had my back from the beginning, and he's been an advocate and a friend and always been a voice of support, and I appreciate him a great deal. But there's nobody that I appreciate more than my lovely wife, Stephanie, who's here with me tonight. She is everything to me. Oh, you should clap. If you knew, you'd clap. My friend, my partner, my ace, the one that gets up early because I go to bed so late at night, the one who's always giving me an attaboy, and you never outgrow that, do you? Never outgrow the appreciation of feeling like somebody sees the best version of you, and I try my best to be my best version every day for you and our kids. And I appreciate you and I love you. And tonight, Daddy gets to bring home a trophy, and that's pretty cool. So thank you all. Now, family allows me to segue to the next portion of this evening. Stuart Scott Van Pelt. That is how your daddy used to introduce the two of us when we did the show together. And that meant a lot to me for a lot of reasons, because Stuart, as we know, was a trailblazer. Stuart was a man who used his voice in ways that many in our field and our positions hadn't before. And Stuart showed that it was okay to be who you were and do your thing, right? Talk the way you want to talk, say the things you want to say. But let's just be honest, like, I'm a white boy from the suburbs, so do I have license to do that? Well, when Stuart says Stuart Scott Van Pelt, what he's telling the audience is that me and this guy right here, it's not me and him, it's us, it's we. And that's what we were. We were the team. And sometimes I'd be Gary Payton throwing it up to his Shawn Kemp, and sometimes he'd be GP and I'd go in and get it. And we didn't care where the credit lied. I think that's what makes what you guys do, Ernie, you and Chuck and all the fellas. It's what makes that so great. No one cares who got the credit. We just knew that the tide, right? If he was great, I'd just ride along. And if I was great, vice versa. And when I'd sit down, I'd look over at him and say, "Now, don't bring that weak shit tonight, okay? Because don't bring that weak Carolina stuff, because we're going to do it College Park style." And he'd be like, yeah. And then we'd do our hour and we'd have a blast, But Stuart empowered me to be me. And we grew up in the same space, in the same time. We liked the same music. We enjoyed the same movies. We were the same person. And so him being who he was and taking all the crap he did along the way allowed me to occupy that lane so that we could be us together. And from the very beginning, I'd be at the U.S. Open and he'd be at the NBA Finals, and we'd be texting back and forth. We were rooting for each other. And he was a much bigger star than I ever was or ever will be. I mean, he was a different kind of thing. He was the brightest light you could be. But he let me stand in that shine, and we try to shine together, And I miss him. I miss him. I'm going to get to what I miss the most in a minute. But see, the thing about Stuart is if all people talked about was the way he talked, and if they used, they would say he had a urban sensibility, or he represented hip-hop culture, or you don't have to talk around it, just say what it is. This is a black guy who talked in a way that resonated with black people in a way that a person that sat in our chair never had before. And the people in the corner offices didn't get it. But guess what? It wasn't for them. And it didn't need to be. Because it resonated with the athletes in locker rooms, and it represented in the neighborhood or in the barbershop or on the streets or whatever euphemisms you want to use to describe places where the culture was appreciated. But see, the culture is appreciated everywhere, not just by any color or any one group. It doesn't belong to anybody. And Stuart shared that with everyone, including me. And if all you talk about is that with Stuart, then you're telling on yourself, because you miss the fact that he was a brilliant writer who put great thought into what he talked about. He appreciated drama and theater more than he did sports. You know that. And he put more facts into his shot sheets than anybody. He was I want to say this politely, not the enemy of the people in research, but he was not their favorite because Stewart would demand a fact that wasn't just readily available. And he would ask for it in a break, and you'd look at the research and be like, how am I supposed to, what are you even talking about? How many home runs does he have against Boston on Tuesday in the Eastern time zone? Is that what you said to me? All right. Stewart wanted to know because Stewart was going to be a complete broadcaster, and he was. And he was brilliant. And I miss sitting next to him. I miss those nights, those special nights when you'd come on and you knew there was a vibe, there was an energy. That night that Austin Rivers hit a 3 at the buzzer and Carolina lost and Duke won, and there's a 10 count in our air, and next counts to us. And I looked at him, I'm like, you gonna be okay? And he's like, not really. I said, man, if this was Maryland, I would be out the door. But he put on a brave face and we had to do it. But you knew those nights, they were special. And I loved them. But that's not what I miss. It'd be 1:30 in the morning, and we'd be down in the empty Building 4 in Bristol, Connecticut. And let me tell you, there ain't much going on at 1:30 in the morning in Bristol, Connecticut. Not a lot going on at noon in Bristol, Connecticut, but that's neither here nor there. And we'd be there in the hallway, and he had an office and I had an office, and we never went in either one's office, and I don't know why that is. It's kind of strange, but we would stand in the hallway leaning up against the lockers, and we'd start talking about life. And inevitably, invariably, we would talk about two people, and that's Taylor and Sydney. And those are his beautiful daughters who are now beautiful women, Ivy League grads, women of immense substance and importance and beauty, yes, but so much more than just that. But they were just little girls back then. And he'd be like, man, you got to see this. This is the Taekwondo video. She's breaking. I'm like, I'm not that. Oh, wow, damn, she broke that board. Show me that again. Or soccer game. He was a kind of a vocal soccer fan, as I recall. Or theater or music or whatever it was. There was a depth of love that he had for you that was profound, and I was not yet a father. But I am now. And now I get it, and I appreciate it in a different way. The last text that we had back before we lost Stewart was me sending a picture of my baby girl to him. And I got to show my now 9-year-old daughter to Taylor tonight. And it's heavy because I think of what we lost, and I know what you guys lost, and it's a whole different deal. And I know you've heard it a lot. And I'm just going to say it again, he couldn't have loved you more, and he couldn't have been prouder who you were, and he would be so very proud of what you have become and continue to be. He talked about making chocolate chip pancakes, I believe it was. That was his thing. I can't make those, but he talked to me about the importance of ice cream and treats. See, because you should love your kids, and you should get them to love you because of how you love them, but just in case, ice cream is very helpful. So we share a love of treats in our house as well. So the things I borrowed from him on the air, I borrow from him now as a dad, and I just try to love on my kids as much as your dad loved on you. And long before he was a Hall of Famer, which he now is tonight, he was a Hall of Fame dad. Now Taylor and Sydney are both here. Sydney's not feeling well, but it's my pleasure and my honor to introduce, as we welcome Stuart Scott into the Hall of Fame, his daughter, Taylor Scott.
Mr. Kirkpatrick really started me crying, talking about another iconic girl dad, Frank DeFord. I think it's fair to say that the only feelings I can use to describe receiving this for my father. I'm also receiving it for my sister. She's not feeling well, and I know that she has to take the LSAT in a month and a half, and I don't envy her. The words I would use are gratitude, humility, and inspiration. It can sometimes be difficult to speak with people about my father because the conversation is often framed in terms of legacy and impact and recognition. And these are kind of relatively abstract concepts. They feel non-tangible because there's no real path or formula to reaching this kind of success. Don't get me wrong, I love to hear stories about my dad from people who have, experienced him in any way. I will listen to the same stories over and over because his character shines through them. My mom gets annoyed because I love to listen to the same story again, but that really was who he was. He was his own incredible archive. At the end of this, my sister and I feel gratitude and encouragement because for us, this weekend has crystallized a theme at the very core of what our dad taught us. First, we'd like to extend the biggest possible thanks to Ernie Johnson, Jane Kennedy, Curry Kirkpatrick, Jeff Passon, Scott Van Pelt, Hubey Brown, Jackie McMullen, Dave Gorin, Bob Ryan, Hubert Davis, Janice Washington, Leslie Visser, and Joe Starkey, as well as every single special and regional winner from tonight. I want to extend a thank you more so than a congratulations because sometimes awards can be unpredictable and incidental. I can't relate to the career highs that have been achieved in this room, but I can relate to and be motivated by the work ethic, and that's the most relevant way that I'm really able to relate to my father. I was able to witness some of his career highs, but I was a child and I had no context for them. In many ways, he was able to come out on top and blaze a trail, but so much of that was luck. It was being in the right place at the right time with the right people. It's what some people would call miracles, and some people would call flukes. What I connect to most and am inspired by is the dedication that my dad was developing when he was my age. I know that when my dad was my age, he was consistently told that he would never make it in his industry of choice, that he needed to tone himself way down, and that he was always on the thinnest ice imaginable. I was not there, but my mom was there, and she has recalled to me the way when he ran out of stamina against intense criticism, sometimes he would come home and just be despondent. He'd put on his glasses and he would kneel in front of the television with his feet crossed under him, and he would just stare at the television, not watching. He was so sad and emotionally beat up. He sat there for a long time, and when he was done sitting, he would ask my mom for a hug, and she would rub his head. And then he'd pull the rest of himself back together and get back to it. In some ways, it's chance that he ever got the opportunity to move from ESPN to ESPN. And it's chance that my parents ever got to move out of their little townhouse in Canton, Connecticut. But the way he worked wasn't chance at all. That was never going to change. What he demonstrated to me, and what I have listened to and seen all weekend, is what it looks like to be in love with the work. Even when you lose, even when you are berated, even when the work itself breaks your heart. Even when recognition evades you, even if it will evade you forever. Because recognition is also kind of incidental. There's grit and there's passion involved, but when these come together with love for the work, that's where you find a zone of magic potential. When you believe so deeply in your work that you let go of control over outcome, to the point that you're willing to, for lack of a better term, die trying. That conviction and the conviction that the perspective and the story you are bringing to life is so critical that getting picked up or being your producer's favorite or going viral or just secondary and tertiary, that focus is rare out in the wild, and I was fortunate to have witnessed so many shining examples of that this weekend. So congratulations to the figures honored here by this organization, from me, my sister, and I know my dad as well. But most importantly, thank you for the rare examples of what media can be. As postscript, I'd like to say thank you to my ESPN family. I don't know life without them. And I would also like to say thank you to Mr. Barkley. And he is a fellow February 20th Pisces, and at a time when I would have had to pay all of my classmates and candy to come to my birthday party, he did come to my 10th birthday party to share a piece of cake with me. I am forever grateful. Thank you.
Tremendous. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Ernie Johnson is being awarded tonight as well, joining only Kevin Harlan as Turner Sports Products to win the NSMA's Sportscaster of the Year award. You know about hosting the revolutionary Inside the NBA, his incredible work on Major League Baseball, golf, Wimbledon, and other major events for that company. However, I must tell you that in the early 90s, he joined his dad on a years of Braves broadcast on Old Sports South. And I got to tell you, those are the ones Mom probably liked, right? I understand that. A proud graduate of the Grady School at Georgia, he is an announcer of incredible accomplishment, but also became a New York Times best-selling author in 2017. And if you have never read Unscripted, I would tell you to put it on your summer list. Please welcome Ernie Johnson.
Wow, all right. So I'm the last speaker. Go ahead. It's all right. What time is it? What time is it, Ben? 10:16? Yeah, I was going to say, what time do you need me out, Chuck? Because I can guarantee 10:50. All right, so, no. This will be quick. Dave Gorin, thank you, and the NSMA. That phone call, in our family we call them BlackBerry moments, which goes way, way, way back to my Little League days when we had a baseball game. I was playing in delayed because two of the outfielders climbed the fence to get a ball on a ground rule double, and then gave up the hunt because there were blackberries growing and they decided to just eat blackberries. So we couldn't play again until we had fetched the left fielder and the center fielder. And moments like that became to our family blackberry moments because they were sweet and they were unexpected. And we've lived our lives cherishing these blackberry moments. And so when Dave gave me that call in January, it was like, that qualifies. That was right out of the blue. And shoot, I don't know what to say to you, Van Pelt, because what you unloaded up here on me, you know it's heavy when your wife reaches out and hits you on the thigh and like, hey, hang in there, it's okay. You know, he'll be done pretty soon. But right back at you. The utmost respect for you. And to share this with you, when Dave told me that, hey, yeah, the first time ever we had a tie, it's you and Scott Van Pelt, and I said, that's perfect. That's perfect. As I told Cheryl Ann as we drove up here from Atlanta, I said, there are just two people I need you to meet this weekend, Scott Van Pelt and his wife, Stephanie, and we had a chance to do that. My Turner family's here, which means the world. Thank you, guys. Look, I've been in that chair doing Inside the NBA for 32 years, and I never would have thought that was possible. But recognition like this is just a reflection of the show. It really is. Chuck, I know you're here for Curry, and that's awesome. No, you were here to introduce him. He had asked Curry called me and said, can you get a hold of Chuck? I would really love him to introduce me at the Hall of Fame. And I said, sure. And I tell Chuck that, and he's like, yeah, I'll be there. But look, you and I have been together for like 20 years now. Yeah. Yeah, it does. I never would have thought it would last that long. I would have thought you'd found something better to do. But I'll tell you this, you changed my life. You changed my career. You changed that show forever. And because of you, and because of the way you and Kenny and Shaq and I seem to work, you've brought us all recognition. So thank you, brother. I appreciate you. There is a... Hey, I love that. See, you didn't think that was going to happen, you big knucklehead. Eat, refresh. So, the whole backbone of this thing, when I look back, and I mean, I never would have thought that the career would last this long, and continues to. But it's been mentioned so many times, it's family. And so, you know, Cheryl Ann is down here, my wife of nearly 40 years. If we make it to August, it'll be 40. And our kids, Eric and Maggie and Michael and Carmen and Ashley and Allison, and 4 grandkids. And to be standing up here in Winston-Salem, I think about the event used to be held in Salisbury. And there were a couple of times my dad was on that stage as the Sportscaster of the Year from the state of Georgia. And so it was a very special, kind of a surreal feeling for me tonight to be here. And he's been at this event being honored before. And Jackie, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. You know, they're so special. Had a chance to work with mine, as Wes pointed out. Nothing will ever eclipse that. Working with Chuck and Shaq and everybody, nothing will eclipse working with my dad. And to kind of be joined with him now in an honor like this is pretty staggering. My mom is 94, lost my dad about 10 years ago, but they were so supportive. And I go back now to my first TV job was in 1979 in Macon, Georgia. And to show you the support that my mom and dad gave me. They were coming back from spring training one year with the Braves, and we're driving through Warner Robins, Georgia, south of Macon. And they looked at the clock and they said, you know what, if we can find a place, we can watch Ernie doing the news. That was my first job. And so they were going to pull over in Warner Robins, Georgia, so they could see how I was doing. And it was like 5 minutes to 6, and they pull into a hotel right there on the side of the road in Warner Robins, and my mom and dad sprinted into the office, and my dad said, we need a hotel room for a half hour. Now that's putting it out there. That's support. That's a parent's love. And I will never forget that. And to hear my dad tell the story, it was like, you know, the clerk was like, all right, Ernie. You know, I was like, no, we just want to watch the news. Yeah, okay, right. So to stand here this many years later, that was my first job, and I never would have thought I'd been at Turner for 32 years. But man, we're lucky, aren't we? Wes, we're lucky, aren't we? Jackie, Curry, Chuck, aren't we lucky to be doing this for a living? What we love. It's not like working a day in your life. And on a night like this, when I can look down here and look at Cheryl Ann, to be with me on a night like this, we haven't had a normal marriage. And it's been a different year for us because we've for so many years cared for Michael, who had muscular dystrophy. And one of us was always tied to home, so having a chance to travel together was really rare. And so it's weird to say how much I'm enjoying having my wife being able to travel with me for the reason. But I have a feeling that Michael's up there with my dad, and they're looking down and smiling at this whole night. So thank you all. Love you too.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a long-standing tradition here at NSMA, and it's to present our national winners and Hall of Famers with a personalized, genuine Louisville Slugger. So I'm going to ask Curry Kirkpatrick, Jackie McMullen. Tyler, come on. No, you're not dodging this one. Ernie and Scott to come back to the stage. And Daniel, where you want them? Over here? All right. Andy and Emily have done a fabulous job tonight. They're going to give you your personalized Louisville Slugger. Daniel's going to make the pictures. Yeah, huh? See? Yeah. All of a sudden, the slab becomes the second best thing of the night, right, Jackie? We got to go over here. We're going over here to lie. They're going over here.
You put it back, guys.
I mean, Van Pelt wants to throw BP here. I mean, we got something going on. Everybody slides in.
What are you? If you're writing, Good night, everybody.
Got 'em? Put the bats down. Hold the bats down. All right, while they finish up the pictures. I told you at the top, Butcher and Bull awaits in the lobby of the Marriott, ladies and gentlemen. If you were an award winner tonight, I suggest you come collect a box. We have those boxes available up front here tonight to travel your award back home. Also, little caveat here this year. If you are familiar or know your state colleague that also won, if you'd like to travel their award back, we'd also welcome the opportunity for you to do that. If you have arranged transportation for transfer back to airports tomorrow, the shuttles begin at 3:25 this morning. Hey, do what you got to do in this game. If you need additional details, the man in the tuxedo might be able to help you here at the far right. That and also show you the wine list. And there's a sign posted on the registration table as well at the Marriott lobby when you return tonight. We all good on photos? Everything else? Daniel's going to get one more photo. We're going to bid you farewell and thank you for your wonderful attendance tonight at the 62nd National Sports Media Association Awards. Good night and God bless.